we'd start things off. Before we call the meeting to order, I'd invite you to stand and join me in the pledge, and then I'll bring the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you tonight. Your mercies are new every morning. And God, just guide us tonight to make good decisions for the residents of our city and give us discernment. And we probably have a long meeting. Give us stamina, Lord, and help us to be respectful to one another. And we ask these things and trust you for them now in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I'd like to again welcome you to tonight's Springdale City Council meeting. This is the regular meeting of the City Council. This is Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. We do have large print agendas. Wyman's holding them up over there if anyone in the room would if that'd be beneficial to any of you. And then I think I'll just ask our Denise Pierce, our city clerk. I'm introducing you now.
Thank you.
To call the roll.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Amelia Williams. Here. Jeff Watson. Here. Mike Overton. Here. Jim Reed.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Rick Evans.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Kathy J. Cox. Here. Ernest Cake.
Here. All right, thank you. That was just, calling your name out was just in case you draw an opponent. Okay. All right. We are about to roll into item 4, I think, which is our comment opportunity for our residents to comment on agenda or on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Before we do, I would like to recognize, I think, 2 different council members who would, and guys, I don't care who goes first, it's y'all just.
Thank you, Mayor. In the last council meeting, I made comments about the origin of this novel coronavirus that we're all having to deal with. The way I articulated the facts was wrong, and I want to apologize. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." The words, the tone, and the body language I used, it stirred up anger. And for this reason, and for my conviction of my faith, I must apologize to our citizens, to our surrounding cities, to this council, and to you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Also, before we move through tonight's agenda, I want to take a brief moment to once again address my actions 2 weeks ago in this very room. As I have stated, there is no excuse for my actions that needed, nor are there enough words to express how truly sorry I am. The lessons I learned over the course of the days following were hard lessons, but important lessons nonetheless. What we say matters. My lapse in judgment that night mattered to many. It mattered to all of you. It mattered to our constituents. It mattered to my family, but mostly it mattered to me. Those words do not reflect who I am as a person or how I view the many different communities that call Springdale home. The last 2 weeks have been some of the hardest days of my adult life, but I believe they were necessary because they allow me to sit here before you tonight with a new and healthier perspective. The real tragedy is to learn nothing from a mistake. Fortunately, that is not my case, as I have learned and I will continue to learn from my mistakes, and we all should strive to do so. I love this city and its people with all my heart, and for more than 20 years, I believe my service on the City Council reflected that attitude. We have accomplished much together, and we have much more to do. To that end, I look forward to continue our collective work, and with ultimate goal in mind, make Springdale, Arkansas the absolutely best place to work, live, and raise a family for all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Rick. So now we're ready to move into item 4, comments from citizens. Jeff, do we have anybody? You might check and see if there are any, or if there's anybody in the room that would like to speak concerning an item that is not on tonight's agenda. We ask that you keep your comments brief. You clearly state, yeah, I see you, Tommy. We'll get to. Let me go ahead and give the rules. That you keep your comments brief and please remember the council won't take action on anything you have to say tonight. I also ask that, just as we prayed earlier, that we stick to items that the council actually has action to take, or the possibility of taking action, rather than any personal attacks or anything that really the council doesn't have purview over. So, yes, sir. Good to see you tonight. Can someone help him? Danny, can you help him with the microphone? Or yeah, there you go. That'll work.
He doesn't want to speak.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
I would like to say a couple of words. I'd like to
Hi.
commend Rick. I'd like to commend Rick and Brian here for their nice words and apology. I think it takes a man to stand up and admit he's wrong. They've done a great job, and let the healing begin. I look forward to a unity in this town, the council, and all Northwest Arkansas. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Fadl. Thank you, Tommy. All right, any other comments concerning an item that's not on tonight's agenda? All right, we will move on to item 5. Who's here from the chamber? Scott. Scott? Oh, I didn't see you. You changed sides on me, Scott. Scott Edmondson from the Springdale Chamber will bring the quarterly economic development report.
Thank you, Mayor. And I did pass out a copy of this economic development report for the second quarter of this year. And did want to let you know that even though with this pandemic, economic development efforts are continuing, as we have working right now presently with 5 companies that are manufacturers that are looking at sites in Springdale. So those are ongoing talks, and hopefully we'll have some good news here in the coming month or so over on those. Our unemployment data is still doing very well as far all things considered. We still were one of the lowest in the state at 6.6%, and that was for May, which was that's the last data available through the Department of Workforce Services, and there were only 2 of the larger cities in Springdale, in the state that had less than 7%. Our sales tax figures continue to remain pretty strong. There was a slight increase over July of 2019, as we had just under 1.4 million in receipts in July, and we also have a 7% increase over that time period in 2019. Also, our construction permits, our building permits are doing pretty well. We had 43 residential permits in the month of June alone, and for the second quarter, there were 75 residential permits, and that outnumbers last year's second quarter when there were just 70 residential permits in the city. On Thursday, June 25th, at our regular morning brew, Governor Hutchison addressed the group and had some very good things to say about Springdale and some of the efforts being made here to help combat the coronavirus. And then also I wanted to note that on August 20th, a ribbon cutting is scheduled for the new Highlands Oncology building, which is located just on the west side of I-49 at Don Tyson. So there'll be we'll have more information coming out on that soon. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them, but appreciate your time.
Thanks, Scott. Yes.
Scott may have stolen Colby's thunder, but Colby did, we had mentioned that we might have a financial update tonight instead of the last committee meeting.
Right.
And if it's okay with everybody, we'll just do that at the end of the meeting.
Okay, good deal. I'll save some comments then. I was going to make a few, and I think I'll save them. I will say, though, that in our staff meeting this morning, Patsy mentioned that Scott, you mentioned 5 businesses, and it sounds like nothing in planning is slowing down. So it sounds like we've still got a lot of things in the pipeline, and people interested in being in Springdale, doing business in Springdale. So that's great news.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Council, you've had an opportunity to look over the minutes. You've got 2 minutes for 2 meetings to approve, and I would entertain a motion to approve them if there's no changes or or additions?
If none, so moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Item 7, procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
I move for A and B except for item 12.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, Brian, I didn't hear what you said.
I move for A and B except for item 12.
Can I clarify your motion? Or your, would it be for, except for 12 on number B? Because A pertains to reading ordinances and resolutions by title only.
Yes.
So it pertains to
be for-
A and B or
it'd
just B?
just be for B.
Okay.
On item 12, just for B.
Just for B.
A and B on everything else,
That's correct.
okay?
Thank you.
And does that
for
reflect
clearing
the
that up
motion?
for me.
Or the second?
I seconded it.
Okay. All right, roll call.
Overton,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans, Powell,
Yes.
Jaycox. Yes. Williams. Yes. Watson.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right. Thank you. I brought forward, and it's in your packet, and it came out with the agenda. I brought forward a resolution for the council to consider. I think in light of not necessarily what's transpired, a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, but I think in light of just where we are as a country, and some of the things we need to maybe get our feet under us and take a breath, and I'm going to read through this just as I did the resolution we did a few weeks ago, and it's a resolution affirming the City of Springdale's commitment to equality and inclusion. Whereas the City of Springdale affirms the sacred words written by our founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence, which states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas the City of Springdale strives to be a leader in the state of Arkansas, known by many as the land of opportunity, and to foster an environment that extends that opportunity to all, regardless of race, religion, creed, or gender. And whereas the City of Springdale reaffirms that we remain committed to being a community and destination for all people of all races and cultural backgrounds. And whereas the City of Springdale will continue building a community where each person's dignity is ensured without fear of feeling isolated or excluded. And whereas the City of Springdale does not condone actions or speech that marginalizes any individual or group of people. And whereas the City of Springdale has and will continue to govern with unbiased opinion and will continue to act in such a way that prioritizes all community members. And whereas the City of Springdale is taking measures to ensure equality and respect for its residents and educating individuals on the importance of welcoming all individuals or groups of people. And now therefore be it resolved by the City Council for the City of Springdale, Arkansas, that based on the foregoing, the City of Springdale will continue to evaluate steps and implement programs that give rise to recognition, commitment, and acceptance of all people, encouraging inclusion, and to ensure equality through actions and policies that no individual or group of people will be set aside, providing all an equal opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I'll move the resolution pass. Second.
Oh, we got a second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Let me address just one thing before we vote, and of course we're open for any other comments y'all might have. But I'm not going to go into a lot of detail yet, but the last whereas, taking measures to ensure equality and respect for its residents and educating individuals, last year, actually through, I think it was just through 2019, we had a position on staff. It was it was named a welcoming coordinator, and Lourdes Paredo was, she still works part-time in Ernest's office. Wonderful person, and did a great job as welcoming coordinator, and honestly, I realize since we've been without her, my dad had a saying, he'd say, "You never miss the water till the well runs dry," and that's kind of, you know, Lulu did a great job with a lot of things that we didn't necessarily always appreciate or were aware of, and so now the bottom line is the Tyson grant was going to expire in 2019, and I had a conversation with Lulu as we were working on this year's budget back last fall, and y'all will remember how challenging the budget process was last year, and I just told her I just didn't think that we could pick up the cost for that position this year. My hope is that we can pick it up for next year. Now, it may not be Lulu. Lulu has since, she works part-time in the city attorney's office, but she also has now a full-time job with Engage Northwest Arkansas. So, and she'll carry on her great work there and continue to promote Springdale there as well as the other cities in Northwest Arkansas. But just my hope is that we can, if we get through this year well, that we can reinstitute that position in on our staff. I think it's very important, and for the outreach to our community. So that's one measure that I want to just go ahead and throw out there that we're hoping to take. You know, it's one thing to just say we're going to do some things and leave it like that, but I did want to put some definition to that for our folks to know that we do take this resolution, and we take how we treat our residents seriously, and I think that that's an important position that I hope we can fund as we bring it forward for the 2021 budget. Any other comments or questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Reed.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Powell.
Yes.
Jaycox.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right. Thank you all very much. Much appreciated, and I know that will mean a lot to our residents, to the people of Springdale. Item 9 is a public hearing on application for a taxi cab operator permit.
Yes, good evening. The Public Vehicle Commission met a week ago. We are moving this forward to the council for a recommendation for approval. In the interim with this public hearing, it gives the opportunity for those that want to give us other information we may not have. We invite those who are interested in commenting and sharing with us to come forward now. He's not hiding. Would you like to come forward and say?
Hello, I'm from Ambassador, Christina. I'm the administrator for Ambassador. Does anybody have any questions for me? No? So we've been around since 2012 with the previous owner. The current owner's owned it since 2015. And I've been the administrator since, it's about a year, but it's just in the last 4 or 5 months that the owner stepped down completely. So everything falls on me now. So we get calls, multiple calls on an average day, between 5 and 10, wanting us to come over here and pick up people, which we can't. We don't have a license over here. The coupons, there's a big call for that. We do that in Bentonville and Rogers already. So we'd like to be a part of that. I mean, we'd like to work with the other taxi companies that we do in Bentonville and Rogers. We have a good working relationship with all the other companies over there. You know, we pass on stuff to them. They pass it on to us. I'd like to do that here. So we're just looking to come here.
All right. Thank you. Hang close in case.
We'll let those who speak in the questions clear our eyes.
All right, I just heard some new information there I'm going to address at the end. Good evening, Stuart Liberty, Fayetteville Taxi, and I've been doing this for, was with Bryce Curry, good 10 years ago, so I have a lot of the history and know a lot what has gone on. I have tried to, knowing the sensitivity of the meeting and what was going to be going on here tonight, try to limit this very much beforehand on comments. When, in the history on Ambassador, when it started on a similar name with Dynasty, and Mr. Curry asked them to change their name, which is where Ambassador came from. There's also issue, which I believe the city attorney's office or city clerk's office found, there is still issue with the use of the Ambassador name because it actually is a genuine incorporated name in use by somebody else. The original owner sold to the current owner, Billy Dethridge. Mr. Dethridge has been with him and through many processes of equal meetings just like this, which are required by statute. They go in, they get set up, and then they walk away. They do not renew. Big history of that. One example, going into Fayetteville, it's been 3 times that they have been set up in Fayetteville. Our first time they got denied. Everybody came forward. There wasn't a need for anything additional. They got approved under the old ownership. They did not then renew, follow through, bring any more vehicles, no more drivers through. The company then sold to Mr. Dethridge. He then came in, reapplied again, did everything for 1 year, and then never came back again, and we're talking 4 years. Comment I just noted that she said is that they're taking Fayetteville coupons, yet I know of no adjudication recently where they're taking Fayetteville, where they're even allowed to be in Fayetteville. And in fact, the comments I have from Fayetteville PD as of maybe November last year is that they're not allowed to be in there because they've been caught in there. So I don't know how they're taking Fayetteville coupons. Did I just hear that them saying Fayetteville coupons? Did I misunderstand that? Oh, Bentonville Rogers. Okay. Thank you. All right. Now, as far as Bentonville and Rogers go, and I called Bentonville. I first did a search on their website. There is no adjudication whatsoever that at least I can find, and they're saying for them to be a taxi service in Bentonville. There isn't one in Rogers. There was confusion in Rogers. There was a public hearing for a zoning change for a one-vehicle operation out of a house in Rogers. And they were very upset when they found out he had multiple vehicles and buses. Now, only because the demise of everything that Uber has done to the existing fleets, I guess everybody's looking the other way right now. But as of this point, the only possible place that they are adjudicated as a taxi is Siloam Springs, and then again they walked away from that also. They went to Eureka Springs. It's an interesting video when you look at the donuts in the city council, and the city council getting very upset and saying no. There's just a long history of them starting and walking away. I made some comments about the paperwork. And again, I indicated originally I was going to ask for it to be tabled. Now, out of the own city ordinances, and this is pretty typical across the country, on a list of items that you're supposed to be looking at, item B listed is moral character. There's some of the items here I do not wish to get into at this level. I don't think it'd be appropriate, but I think some of this needs to be known by the council. And if I had any prior knowledge of this, to do this at the agenda or the committee meeting beforehand and get this information over, it would have been better at that setting and not here at this setting. Now, they keep setting up and walking away from things, and I question that as far as what they're going to do. Getting down to item H in this of the things you're supposed to be looking at, whether the applicant proposes to own, rent, lease some of the taxi cabs to be operating in the service, none of that is indicated. And an interesting note, when I rolled up here, there's a black Lincoln Town Car with a taxi top light, which never has a taxi top light on until tonight, has a taxi top light on it, yet this very vehicle is not being shown on the insurance that you have in hand. The number of taxi cabs in operation down to 3. We're only showing insurance on 3 vehicles right now. Yet they have a 15-passenger van, they have a handicapped vehicle, and some more vehicles like the town car and others that aren't showing on this insurance, so I'm kind of wondering what's going on. And I barely have any time to react to this from the time that we get noticed in anything else to do this. Item J on this, whether the requirements of public convenience and necessity can be met and complied with only by the issuance of additional permits. Now, this is where I take big contention on this. I, 3 years ago, said there were a lot of illegal companies running around, and some of the stories that have just unveiled themselves in the last month, you are not going to believe, including people that stood before you 3 years ago and what they're doing today right now. Until we get all these other companies out of here, like US Cab that stood before you, what, 6 weeks ago? Okay, just saw him again today. I see him 3-4 times a week doing pickups here in Springdale during the daytime. Okay? He knows better, yet he still comes here. He takes the calls from Payless Taxi that are coming up here and comes up here and does the calls. And then I park at a gas station. I have Payless Taxi in Springdale, getting gas, and I'm getting Payless Taxi, who you've already said no to, in Springdale, pulling up at the gas pumps, just there to yell and scream at me at a Casey's gas station here in Springdale. And there's others running here illegally without any insurance. Until this gets cleaned up, there is no baseline, there's no floor to determine who's supposed to be doing what and where. There are people driving around doing this without any insurance here, and you will be horrified when you hear about the one. I don't want to say here because there will be a criminal investigation involved with what they are doing. And it's somebody that you approved priorly that never followed through. Item K on this, the resulting effect of the businesses on existing permit holders. Again, unfortunately, with the, I will say, substitute taxi services of Uber and Lyft, which are essentially doing the same thing, but say no when they feel like it. We're required to take everybody, with certain exceptions of certain reasons. They can just say no because they feel like it, unless we're getting into some really delicate reasons that are outlined in law. But generally, if they don't like you, they can kind of say no and move along, and it's going to be real hard to enforce it with them. So they have come along and done what's called cream skimming and cherry picking, and it has made it very thin for any existing company to operate. You add more companies needlessly, and I'm not saying the answer to, I'm not asking for a no answer tonight. I'm asking for you to table this tonight. I'm more than happy to sit down immediately with anybody, city attorney, mayor, video conference, whatever. I will go over all this, and then you'll understand my position and why my grief. I have 5 vehicles. I'm not putting them all in insurance, because then I have to pay for that, and then if I'm putting somebody behind the wheel, I have to pay for that. But if there's no money coming in because all these people run around doing illegally, and then Ambassador that knows better, that has been running into here for years doing this, Green Cab never came here, now they're gone thankfully, but they were taking away from Dynasty and NWA at the time, hurting them. It has to stop. And some, especially the people that don't have any authority anywhere and no insurance anywhere, need to be dealt with and stopped, including a court order if necessary. I see them like several people every other day acting as a taxi in this city. Now, on the insurance and the paperwork and the application, Christine Osborne for Billy Deathridge in parentheses, and she just said that he's basically delegated the company to her. This is a legal document at this point. I see nothing granting her authority. I see her signing this. I see nothing reflecting that she's a corporate officer, no 10% ownership, nothing. This isn't even notarized. We made everybody else notarize it, including me. This is even notarized. We don't even know if she has power of attorney to bind over the corporation to do this. And again, this isn't even, the corporate name isn't even reflected on the application. I read the notes that were in the FOI I put in for the emails, and somehow we got it corrected, but this paperwork, this is typical. There's this fuzzy paperwork by them, and this is their history, all over the place from Eureka Springs to Springdale to Bentonville to Rogers to Fayetteville, over and over again. I mean, we have one company name. Please, it's not the same on any of the paperwork. It seems to change. And the last thing, guys. All right, the insurance. No workman's comp. We have all these people driving around, whatever their position is, no workman's comp. Receiving federal monies, no workman's comp. We also have indicated on here general liability insurance with the same policy number as the vehicular insurance. Now, I called the carrier. They said that's not even a valid string of numbers, the policy number that's on here. And they don't issue $300,000 policies for general. So I don't know who created this, but this could borderline be a felony if this wasn't created by the agent. And if it was created by the agent, I know exactly who at the state insurance commissioner's office that's going to come down on them like a ton of bricks. Because this is not how this document, and this is a certificate, it basically holds a very strong value. This thing ain't even close to being right. And the name on it, again, Ambassador Transportation Services, LLC, which is not who this application is. This application is supposed to be Destiny Limousine, LLC, doing business as Ambassador Transportation, for which that name is in dispute. Last, the supplemental page on which vehicles are covered. Again, nothing is marked where it's supposed to be for hire. It better be marked as for hire on all these vehicles. We have 3 vehicles here, 1 scratched off. And then again, we have a town car sitting out here that's not on this insurance. And I don't think the vehicle that they have represented on here as a town and country is the handicapped wheelchair accessible vehicle they have on their Facebook page, for which is another huge last problem. On their Facebook page, they have a handicapped wheelchair accessible vehicle that they will charge someone in a wheelchair a different rate for than what everybody else pays. I cannot begin to tell you how many shades of federal law and the ADA that violates. But they want $20 or $25 for the thing to come out at a minimum of $20 for 6 miles and $3 a mile for the use of that vehicle, and it's right on their Facebook page. As a matter of record to the Siloam Springs City Council, they're a little bit different, and they think they need to approve the rates. They do, but ambassadors submitted $15 minimum for anything that they do in the city, and then they walked away. Now, as far as Rogers, and you can talk to Donna at Rogers City Hall, who handles the coupons there, and I know her because of my working relations with NWA Taxi and what they were doing at the time. Again, at the time, only NWA Taxi for the last several years has been doing the coupons in Rogers. Ambassador comes in to do it. Again, no adjudication there as a taxi, but that slipped by them. They admit this. But they are doing a $15 minimum on anybody with coupons in the city of Rogers. They are willfully and intentionally doing more cream skimming and cherry picking and only taking the stuff that is, let's say, the profitable runs. There's plenty of runs that the taxi companies do, including mine, when they're only $6 or $8 runs. There really isn't a profit in it. Uber's charging more. And we're told to charge less. Okay, it's an issue. And I want this phrase to be taken at heart. Financially, we have to take the bad with the good. But when Ambassador comes in and says, well, we're going to charge you $15 minimum, excuse me. So there's more I'd like to talk about, and I would like this, and I respectfully request it be tabled. There's some issues I don't think would be appropriate bringing out here. And I will meet immediately with anybody that wants to meet.
Thank you for your time. My understanding that the commission met to determine whether there was a need. The commission met and determined there was.
Correct.
Tonight is a resolution to, after this, well, I guess we should, let me start this, let me back up a minute. Are there any other comments that anybody has to make regarding this application? Seeing none, then we'll close the public hearing. Okay, the next step then is there's a resolution on our agenda for this entire council to consider this application. Should it pass at that point, does it not then go through a process to evaluate the insurance, the liability, the cabs, everything that was just mentioned?
Absolutely, and I think this needs to be put in some context as well as how this even came about. The police department actually recommended that they go through the process of perhaps being a taxi cab operator in the city of Springdale. In fact, it came about because the police department was actually doing an undercover sting to try and catch taxi cabs that were unlawfully operating in Springdale. And what happened was these folks actually came and picked up a fare in Springdale, but it was determined that they were going to X&A. They are licensed as a shuttle service, which means they don't have to have a permit with the city of Springdale as a taxi cab operator if they're going from a hotel to the airport. They satisfied that, and it was in that context that it was suggested that perhaps if they apply, and I think there's been conversations even about 5 months ago where there were conversations as well. You're right, this is just the beginning. They filed the application. The resolution says, as it always says, that permit shall issue at such time as the applicant complies with all requirements and provisions of Chapter 122, which includes numerous things, including verification of the insurance, background checks on drivers, all these things that we make every other taxi cab company before the permit even issues. So maybe to put some of that in context, they don't have to have all that tonight. You're correct, the Public Vehicle Commission, per the ordinance, did recognize that there was a need and forwarded it for a hearing.
Thank you, owners, for that. Would you mind reading the resolution, and then we'll...
This is a resolution approving an application for a taxi cab operator permit filed by Billy Deathridge on behalf of Destiny Limousines, LLC, DBA Ambassador Transportation Services.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Yes, ma'am.
Howe,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson, Overton,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Patsy's on her way. Planning Commission report and recommendations by Patsy Christie, Director of Planning and Community Development. Planning Commission's been busy. Got lots of items. Let me mention too, and I should have mentioned earlier, I apologize, item K, in case you're here for that, item 11K has been tabled per applicant, right?
Yes.
Okay, they have asked it to be tabled, so if they're, I apologize for not letting you know sooner if anyone's,
Able to another meeting, or is it just pulled?
are we tabling it, or they just wanted it removed?
They wanted it removed now. It's just a waiver request, and we're still working through the process, and
So
it
it
may
could
not.
come back, but they're not,
Right.
so we're not necessarily tabling it, or we're not?
No, we're not tabling it to the
yeah.
next meeting. They're withdrawing it at this point.
Okay.
And when we get to that point, it'll come back
There we
at
go.
that time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The first item is the final plat of Phase 1 of the cottages at the Park subdivision. If you'll remember, we tabled that at the last meeting. I can tell you that there's been a lot of asphalt put down since then, and we're moving forward. Planning Commission recommends approval of this ordinance, accepting the plat. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance accepting the final plat of Phase 1 of cottages at the Park subdivision to the city of Springdale, Arkansas, declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions for anyone? Anyone in the audience need to speak to this one? Okay, Denise?
Evans, Howe,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson, Overton, Reed,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Howe,
Yes.
Jaycox, Williams,
Yes.
Watson, Overton, Reed,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans,
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
And as usual, the emergency clauses are added to these ordinances because there are pending development proposals or actions that need to be taken. The next item is a rezoning request to rezone 1.14 acres located at 601 North Thompson. The request is to rezone the property from Large Product Retail Sales District C6 to Thoroughfare Commercial District C5. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval of the rezoning Title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from large product retail sales district C6 to thoroughfare commercial district C5 and declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further questions or comments? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams? Yes. Watson?
Yes.
Overton? Yes. Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Williams?
Yes.
Watson? Overton? Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is a request to rezone .76 acres located at 734 Holcomb Street. The request is to rezone the property from Neighborhood Office District 01 to General Commercial District C2. Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from Neighborhood Office District 01 to General Commercial District C2 and declaring an emergency.
The ordinance passed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Other comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Watson? Overton? Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Second.
Overton? Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Watson?
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is a rezoning request to rezone .492 acres of property located at 1008 West Maple Street. The request is to rezone the property from medium-density multifamily residential district MF12 to general commercial district C2. Planning Commission recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from medium-density multifamily residential district MF12 to general commercial district C2 and declaring an emergency.
Pass.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox? Williams?
Yes.
Watson? Overton?
Move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox? Williams?
Yes.
Watson? Overton? Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins, I don't know if you're listening, but the ordinance and emergency clause carry 8-0.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yes.
He was tuned in. The next item on the agenda is to rezone .86 acres located at 85371 Plaza Court. The request is to rezone the property from large product retail sales district C6 to general commercial district C2. Planning Commission recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from large product retail sales C6 to general commercial district C2 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments, questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Watson? Overton? Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Watson? Overton? Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans?
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item on the agenda, there's a correction on the agenda. It's actually a request to rezone 1.07 acres at 2501 Turner Street from low medium density single family district SF2. to medium-density multifamily residential district MF12. The agenda says A1, but it's actually SF2 to MF12. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from low medium-density single-family residential district SF2 to medium-density multifamily residential district MF12 and declaring an emergency.
So the ordinance in your packet is correct. It was
Right.
just the agenda.
It was just the heading on the agenda
Yeah.
that was wrong, yeah.
Pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments?
Patsy, was there any comments from the public on this?
I don't believe so. The MF12 zone allows for a higher density, but doesn't allow anything taller than two-story. And it's adjacent to a P1 or an O1 district. There wasn't any comments.
Okay. If there's nothing else, I'll ask Denise to call the roll.
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams? Yes. Watson? Overton? Yes. Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Williams? Yes. Watson? Overton? Yes. Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox?
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is a request to rezone 2.91 acres located at 4265 North 40th Street. The request is to rezone the property from Agricultural District A1 to Low Medium Density Multifamily Residential District MF2. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval. The title of the ordinance read an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from Agricultural District A1 to Low Density Multifamily Residential District MF2 and declaring emergency.
Second.
Is that the curve north of the creek?
Yes.
Okay, north of Spring Creek.
And MF2 allows duplexes at no more than 4 units per acre, which is the same density as single-family residential, but it's duplexes. There were some questions about how many was going to be built at that location. The property owner understands that getting sewer to that property is going to be the limiting factor as to how many units they can put on there because of the size of the lot. They can't get very many based on septic systems. So right now he's only talking about one duplex to be added to that location.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anybody in the room need to speak to this? All right, Denise.
Watson? Overton? Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox? Williams? Yes.
Move the emergency clause pass.
Second.
Overton? Yes. Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Yes.
Jaycox? Williams? Yes. Watson?
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next request is to rezone 1.5 acres located between 3550 and 3700 McRae. The request is to rezone the property from Agricultural District A1 to General Commercial District C2. Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from Agricultural District A1 to General Commercial District C2 and declaring an emergency.
Okay, we got a second. Anybody else? Okay.
How far east of Ray are we going with?
If you look at this slide up here, it shows it goes to this piece of property and really gets to the front corner of the property that's adjacent to it is the extent of where, now you know this is just a general guide, it's not a zoning line, but we don't see the commercial extending any further over than that. One more property to it.
What, all the property around it is already commercial?
No, but this is the land use plan. You can see back, the commercial right now is more to the west, a little bit across the street.
So, yeah, it's A1.
Was there any opposition to it at planning?
There wasn't. And it's a larger tract. The same property owner owns the property just to the north of it, and they are not asking to rezone any of that property to C2, only that has frontage onto McRae itself.
Any other questions?
So what is the green, I'm sorry, on the right, what is that?
Low-density residential, I think that's what it says.
Says
up there.
medium density.
Medium
Land?
density.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the land use plan.
So that's the cutoff, basically according to the land use plan.
Right, according to the land use plan. And it doesn't necessarily pick property corners or anything like that. It's that general guide to it. You know, you go further on to the east, there's some commercial that's been there a long time that was there before the property was annexed into the city, more than likely. So you see a kind of a mixture of development in that whole area. McRae has a lot of traffic on it. Really does, yep.
Okay. Anybody else? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Reed,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans, Howe,
Yes.
Jaycox, Williams, Watson, Overton,
Laws passed.
Second.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans, Howe,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Williams, Watson,
Yes.
Overton, Reed,
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next application is for, well, this one got tabled. It's not on tonight. There was no one at the meeting. It'll be tabled to the next meeting. The next one is for a tandem lot split on property located at 5292 North Graham Road. Planning Commission reviewed this conditional use for a tandem lot split and set no conditions other than what it requires to meet the requirements of a tandem lot. Planning Commission recommends approval of the title of the resolution reads, a resolution approving a conditional use at 5292 North Graham Road as set forth in ordinance number 4030.
Resolution passed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to pass the resolution. Any other comment or question? Anyone? Denise?
Evans, Howe,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Williams, Watson, Overton, Reed,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
And the next item is a request for a waiver of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks in conjunction with a single-family dwelling being built at 8300 West Gibbs Road. As you can see, they have very little frontage along the road itself. Planning Commission recommends approval of this waiver. And basically, it's sidewalks, because they wouldn't be required to do the street improvements anyway, but it's basically the sidewalk itself. Title of the resolution reads, an ordinance approving a waiver of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutters, and sidewalks as set forth in ordinance number 3725 to Edgar Barrios in connection with 8300 West Gibbs Road, a single-family dwelling. That little narrow strip that comes out to, yeah.
Waive the sidewalk.
Yeah, they don't have to do street improvements as such with just a single-family dwelling on there. And so they just have that minimum amount. Once you put a driveway in there, I think it's 10 or 15, maybe 20 feet on each side. That's all that would be required. I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's kind of out there in the middle of nowhere, and there has been one other waiver already granted out in that area. We were asked at Planning Commission if there's any plans that we know of doing any street improvements in that area, and there isn't any that any of us know about. I don't normally recommend a waiver of sidewalks, but this one's kind of
That is a drainage ditch along that side of the street.
true. Yeah, yeah.
Anything else? Anyone? Okay, Denise? Oh, we don't have a motion on that one yet.
Move
Thought
the
we did.
resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, now we do.
Oh, what, using option one?
Option one.
Okay, option one. Okay, roll call.
Howe, Jaycox, Williams.
Yes.
Watson. Overton.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Evans.
Carries 8-0.
All right. We're at item 12, Ordinance Committee, Chairman Mike Overton. Mike?
Mayor, we have one item to come before the council. It's an ordinance establishing an entertainment district to be known as the Downtown Springdale Outdoor Dining District, declaring an emergency for other purposes. And this is the one ordinance that we do not waive all readings on it.
Okay.
And would Ernest like
Jill,
to
or-
explain it, or is the Downtown Alliance folks here?
Why don't you come on up, Jill?
Yeah,
So you'll be
Jill.
there. I think the council, the council expressed a desire to make sure the public had an opportunity to weigh in on it.
Yes.
And I know you sent out a lot of things right after they forwarded it.
Right, correct.
And I don't think the paper did an article until yesterday,
Correct.
right? I've had no calls. I've had one call. I was out of the office yesterday on some personal things, and I don't know where's Colby? I think Colby was going to reach out. Did you reach out to Ted? Did you have an opportunity to do that? Oh, okay.
I spoke
You
to
did.
him yesterday, and he said he was fine with everything after I answered a few questions for
Okay.
him.
That
Yes.
was the only call that my office received, as far as I know.
Yes, I'm Jill Dabbs. I'm the executive director with the Downtown Springdale Alliance.
Jill, I had 2 calls, but it wasn't until this evening, literally an hour before our meeting. I have one constituent that had some questions. Wanted to know if the trash receptacles, who was paying for the trash receptacles, the employees to rid the waste, the signage, decals, cups, all of the materials related to this. Would you like to explain who's
Yes,
spending those?
The trash responsibility will still stay with the parks as it is now, according to the mayor. And the collateral that we'll need in order to implement this, the signage, the cups, the information pieces that will come out, DSA is creating those, doing the branding for that, and we will absorb the cost of that for the first 6 months.
Okay, and then after the 6 months?
We will come back and do a report back to council about the metrics, the outcomes, and we will have a fully formed plan for moving forward at that point.
Okay.
We'll also, Amelia, you asked about the trash, and we don't foresee any big change there.
Sure.
If there is, then that's something else we can address when we come back.
Right.
The next thing they wanted to address was, will the city's funding that they provide for you, I'm not sure how to state this, the $50,000 that you're provided with the city, is that funding, when we originally gave it to you, was going to be used for certain things that now, because of the COVID issues that we have, are going to be canceled, or some of them have been canceled?
Well, there's
Is that
still
correct?
there's still a lot of cost, even though a lot of our events have been canceled. That has actually canceled a lot of our additional revenue. It has not necessarily canceled a lot of our ongoing operational expenses.
Okay, so they were alluding to that maybe that $50,000 was going to be going towards that this downtown out dining experience, rather than the other events.
Right. Well, I can tell you the costs are minimal to implementing this. We're talking about 30 window clings, 30 stickers for the sidewalks. I think they're about $6 a piece. And the cups we're getting for 11 cents a piece. And I'm already in conversations with Food Loops for our second order to possibly get different sizes that the bars will want to use for the same price point that we're able to get our first order from at around 11 cents a cup or less.
Okay.
And that will very quickly will become a pass-through expense to the restaurants for the actual cups.
This gentleman also had spoken with some other council members. Someone relayed to them that this was only going to be something that was going to be for the time period of the pandemic, and that it was really just for to bring businesses downtown during to bring business to downtown during the pandemic. Is that how you feel?
That is certainly a motivation to move forward with this ordinance now. It's also a good opportunity to test drive it for about 6 months. We're not implementing this as a pilot project. However, the city council has the authority to taketh away what they giveth. So in 6 months, when we look at all the metrics, we look at, is this working well? The city council will have the opportunity to look at all that data and make decisions about any changes that you would like to make for the outdoor dining district to make it better.
So currently, it's not permanent.
No, it is permanent.
Okay.
But the city council can
Retract.
retract it at any time. I mean,
Right.
And they're really wondering what is the reasoning for the emergency clause instead of waiting the 30 days?
Just so that the bars and the restaurants can start selling more quantity and help them to be more successful more quickly.
That's all the questions that I was given. And then I had a thought. Is there a way that we can limit the time frame and it not be from 10 a.m. to, what was it, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
That is the council's prerogative.
Why was 10 a.m. picked?
10 a.m. was picked because we anticipate some restaurants coming into downtown or existing restaurants that we already have starting to serve brunch, and often people like to have a mimosa or a Bloody Mary with their brunch.
And this doesn't, no, it's okay, that doesn't prevent them from having a mimosa with brunch. It just prevents them from leaving the restaurant or the bar.
Correct. They would have to eat.
Correct.
They would have to eat inside the restaurant unless the restaurant has a patio bar that is ABC permitted, like Odd Soul and Bike Rack and a few of our other places have. That they would have to stay on their premises in the permitted area.
I think my question for that is really based on knowing a business owner that does not want the alcohol in their business during working hours. So I think that might be something to consider, the council to consider maybe changing the hours on that.
Well, the business owner still determines when they have it in there.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to do this.
I think the same business owner, what I said at the last meeting, is really concerned for enforcement of somebody coming into their business with alcohol. They do not have the decal on their window. Their neighbors do. They come in having to enforce that, turn them away, tell them to take the container out of their business, was not something that the business owner was wanting to do. I think maybe a different time constraint would eliminate that issue. But it's something just to consider. I also think maybe we ought to table the issue, or I don't know how that works with the reading of the first reading.
Well,
How does that work?
unless a motion is made and passed by 2/3 votes of the city council, it will stay on the first reading and will come back the next meeting for the second reading.
So we have 2 more weeks, is that
Well,
right?
you can waive it the next time.
Yeah.
You could waive it the next time, so
I see.
could possibly be done, and it would take the same threshold, a 2/3 vote next meeting.
To go from
move-
second to third.
To
Right.
get it all done in next meeting, too.
All your points in the, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if this is passed within any period of time, if there is a problem with trash or enforcement or anything, this council can review it and then make those amendments so that it can
If there's a problem before 6 months, y'all can bring it back anytime.
That's why I'm just trying to make sure that everybody that's listening clearly understands that if this passes this way, it doesn't mean that within the next 30 days, it could not be amended to fix those problems that we didn't see coming.
Right, correct.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
And that's true. I just, to me, I think that with people who called me, found out just a short time ago, and I think that once it's out into the media more now, that looks like it's going to be out more, it'll give more people the ability to let us know their feelings and see how they think about it. I haven't heard from any of the businesses down there, so.
I think I must have gotten the one phone call Amelia got and the one email that maybe all of us got. Those are the only two.
I didn't get the email.
Pro or con.
Really, that where mine came from before these two from tonight was an email presented by Jill to me personally, and I went out to business owners and the public and asked questions, which I shared the concerns, but there were just as many good things as there were negative things to be said about it. I think it was pretty equal, 4 really good things and 4 negative issue or concerns. So
I think it sounds like it's safe to say there was not a groundswell of.
no.
Other than today, Mayor, I hadn't heard anything, but the chutes opened up this afternoon, and I had numerous calls. I had one email, probably the one that everybody else got, but I had 8 calls this afternoon, none of which were positive for it. And it could be a matter of maybe more time to find out more information, but at this point, at least those that contacted me were negative about the proposal.
Did you think they had a good sense of or is that why you're saying more time?
I'm saying more time because frankly, I haven't had time to get back with all of them. I talked to a couple, but the rest of them I haven't had a chance to get back to call. I was running short on time for the meeting, but up until today, I've not heard any, but I certainly did today.
So I was the one that suggested we might at least consider leaving it on the first reading for the reason, just to make sure that the public was aware of this change, just to make sure it was publicized. And prior to today, I was pretty much satisfied because I had seen a story on Channel 5, and I had also seen it in the newspaper, and I had not received any calls one way or the other. And for whatever reason, a lot of the calls that I get at my office instead of at my home. And I left the office early today. So I get a call from my secretary about 5 o'clock before she was leaving and said, "What is going on?" And it's kind of like Mike said, I got a lot of calls, and she relayed to me that most of them, well, it doesn't matter what, I guess they were negative, but my point more than that is that that tells me for some reason people were not aware of it until today. And that's what concerns me a little bit. So I'm leaning towards favoring leaving it on the first reading so that there's more opportunity for the public to have comment.
Council, the Downtown Springdale Alliance is very comfortable and supportive of y'all doing first reading tonight and letting it sit for a couple of weeks. That is very acceptable. Thank you.
Jill, remind me again, who's got it in place now? I know other towns.
Fayetteville just rolled it out. North Little Rock has had it in place for a couple of months. El Dorado, Mountain Home, Little Rock, El Dorado, Eureka Springs.
Other cities in northwest Arkansas
Fayetteville and
looking at it.
Understand Bentonville and Rogers are considering
Right.
it also. Any other questions for me? Thank you, council. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Tom?
I got passed. I've been outside for about an hour and a half, and they didn't text me. But I am here representing Tom Joseph Griffin Company with the resolution I, or item I. Let's see, that would be the conditional use at 5292 North Graham Road. I understand it was
I think it
skipped.
must have turned out, yeah, it turned out okay.
Did it turn out okay?
Yeah, you did
I
a great
didn't
job.
hear.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion to reconsider?
Yeah, you did a great job, Tom.
Hey, that's great. Appreciate it. I'm wearing my Texas. I was on vacation.
I was,
The good news
I
is
might have
we
voted
bought
against
it at-
that.
My wife got it for me. We got it at Walmart. Just wanted to get it.
Okay.
Thanks. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Tom. Let's see, Mike, you're done with your committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll move on then to item 13.
No action was taken.
What?
Mayor,
No
before we
action
move,
Oh.
was taken.
right, but are there any other comments that anybody has while they're here?
We've commented on it, we haven't taken any action.
Oh,
I
there's someone
understand that.
down here.
Okay. You sure may, Mike.
Thanks. My name is Mike Gilbert, 211 West Maple Avenue in downtown. I also serve on the board of Downtown Springdale Alliance, and so I wanted to share with you a little bit about the board's perspective. So the first thing that came to us at the board level was the notification from the state that they were willing to have some flexibility on the discussion and the topic of entertainment districts. And we all raised our eyebrows and said, whoa, wait a minute, you know, this is our downtown. We don't want to create Bourbon Street in downtown Springdale. And so we had a lot of discussion as board members about the whole environment that we're trying to create downtown and the draw for people downtown, right? And so you walk up and down Emma Avenue, you start looking at the restaurants and their capacities. There's not a restaurant that has a large capacity. So if you go to one place, you know, that place is packed, you know, you want to stay downtown for a little bit, you want to go down and visit with the guys down at, you know, at the taco shop or down at Mothership or wherever the place may be. And, you know, just the small capacity of all of our venues, and if you took them all in aggregate and you packed every one of them full and you played, what's the little thing at the red light, Chinese red light, where everybody moved to the next bar, you would never have a packed environment like you're going to see, you know, in New Orleans or some of these other large cities where there are, you know, larger entertainment districts. What Downtown Springdale Alliance is trying to do is to support the downtown businesses, both those that serve alcohol and those that don't, by bringing Footsteps on Emma Avenue. Footsteps on Emma Avenue was defined as the success of the initiative for the Downtown Springdale Alliance when it was formed. If we don't have people down here, nobody's going to invest in their restaurants. We're not going to get a higher step of restaurant unless we have a reason for people to want to be down here. And so, you know, what we're asking for in this initiative, and we were very restrictive and protective of the footprint that we were discussing, because we don't want a willy-nilly ordinance. We don't want people trying to push the limits. What we want is a healthy, entertaining environment in downtown Springdale that families can enjoy. And some of them are going to have a beer, some of them are not. But the initiative from the board level and the focus from the board level is all about Footsteps on Emma Avenue and families together. And some drink, some don't. I don't drink at all, but I still want to support the ordinance.
Mike, if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
some of the concerns that I've heard today, almost every one of them, the concern was we want a family-friendly environment. It might be something to think about that you could put out there that says, yes, we are doing this alcohol ordinance, but that does not take away from the family-friendly environment. I don't know in what way you can show that to the public, but I feel like that is something that they're afraid of.
You know, I think that's an excellent idea. And if you look at the actions of the Downtown Springdale Alliance over the last couple of years, you look at all the events we've had. It was October. It had beer. It also had kids, you know, 2 years old up to 85. The train rides, you know, everything that, but your point is very well taken. I think part of our information strategy working with Jill will be to get out some information both through the website and in flyers that kind of can draw that picture and maybe get some images from some of the other events that show that. But I can assure you that there's nobody probably in this semicircle, and there's nobody on the DSA board that wants to create a wild environment downtown.
Right.
So we're real focused on it too. We like your flexibility in saying, hey, wait a minute, that's not what we were thinking when we said yes, we need to come back and relook at this. And again, it all did start because of COVID, because, you know, people are huddled up. There's not a lot of people getting downtown. We're trying to create some additional incentive to do that. But I think it's good for downtown. I think the big picture is good for downtown, and I hope that that we can show that and demonstrate that over the first, you know, few months that we have the opportunity. Because if we go through this, you know, we'll probably get through the better part of the summer before we try it, and hopefully it'll start cooling off a little bit, and we can show that an entertainment district is a family fun environment. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
If I could add one more comment to that conversation. Thank you, Mike, very much. The branding team really, and some of the board members were on that. They really wanted to be family-friendly forward with this. That's why we chose the name Outdoor Dining District. I shared with you guys the branding logo last week when I was here, and it has forks and spoons on it. So we wanted to be food forward and accompanied by a drink is the reason that we chose that particular branding. So we are very much on the same page with all of you in the environment that we're working and striving to create down here. So thank you for that comment, and wanted to let you guys know we're on the same page.
Okay, so just so we don't leave things on the first reading very often anymore. So is that all we need to do?
No, there hadn't been a motion to
Okay.
place it on a
That's right. You have to
reading
make
at
a
all.
motion if you want to move it to the second
The
reading.
ordinance has been read. That's all.
It'll come back the next meeting for the second reading on August 11th,
Okay.
which that's a very important day.
That is a very important day, by the way, August 11th, and we'll probably need to touch on that before we leave tonight. Okay, so now we're done? Are there any other comments? Yes, sir. Hey, Brent.
Good evening. My name is Brent Hale. I'm a business owner here in downtown Springdale, and it's good to be here. Mr. Mayor, first and foremost, condolences on the passing of your fathers.
Thank you.
Sorry to see that.
Appreciate that.
I own 2 restaurants here in downtown right off Emma, neither of which currently serve alcohol, but I'm absolutely in favor of this ordinance. I think now more than ever, the faster we can move forward with this, especially during COVID, it's going to afford us the opportunity to bring folks into the downtown area while still affording them the opportunity to practice that social distancing and allow our smaller restaurants like ours to be able to kind of increase our footprint and our reach here on Emma simply by doing that. You know, one of the things that drew us to Springdale was the uniqueness of the downtown area, the diversity and the potential. When we first moved in, there wasn't a whole lot on Emma, and it's grown by leaps and bounds ever since. And I think that this will certainly help push that along. I think the entertainment district is a great opportunity during this pandemic, but even more moving forward as things continue to grow on Emma and we continue to see projects. So regardless of where we go with it tonight, I want to encourage you guys to get out and look at and come talk to us on Emma and in the downtown area. I would even wager to say, and maybe I'm wrong, but perhaps the opinions of the people living and working and owning businesses on Emma should carry a little bit more weight than someone over 10, 15, 20 miles away still in Springdale. I think that it'll bring the folks down here. I think it'll be very nice. I think that having the family-friendly aspect forward, we've always done that with our businesses. And kind of to Amelia's point, you know, Chuck E. Cheese serves beer and caters to families all day long. So I don't see any reason why.
And their
Emma
pizza's
can't.
no good.
And the pizza's no good. That's right. So go to Odd Soul. He's got video games, I think.
Yeah.
So, want to thank you guys for considering this, and hopefully we can work out the details and move forward. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brent. Is there anyone else on this before
At
we?
the committee meeting,
leave it?
I asked the police department how this was going to be for them, and I see Chief Peters is here. Chief, can you tell us what this is going to be like for controlling or patrolling for the police department?
First of all, I want to apologize for last week. I didn't realize this was on the agenda, and I took vacation, so I left someone sitting here that didn't have any background on this. I've spoken with Springdale Downtown Alliance. We went over the plan. I'm pretty comfortable with it. I feel like they've got a good plan. We talked about the footprint, how they're planning on managing the alcohol. Spoke with ABC about it, with the people in our department that specifically enforces that. I don't really oppose it. I don't know that we're going to have any issues. If we do have issues, I'm going to be right back here telling you we've got issues. Right. Hope we don't. I hope it brings a lot of people downtown and it helps our city develop. If there's a problem, I promise you, I've spoken with the mayor too, and he assured me that he had an open door if we had a problem with this. Yeah. But I haven't had anybody in the police department tell me that this is going to be a big issue for us.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks, Chief. All right. If there are no other comments, then I think we're ready to leave. Not leave the room. Leave the item 13. Okay?
If we do that, then it just dies.
No?
It
comes
just
back.
read on the first reading, and then next time it'll be read
once.
again.
Yeah, it's been read
Then it's
once.
up to a motion whether it moves to the third reading or we leave it on the second reading.
Right. Okay? So we'll revisit it in 2 weeks, as it sits right now. Okay. Am I right, Ernest?
You are correct.
Okay, because we don't do that anymore. You know, we used to do it all the time.
Yeah.
And the city attorney used to read them
Yeah.
verbatim, which he should do again. It's good practice.
Okay, item 13, Street and Capital Improvements Committee, Chairman Rick Evans. Rick?
I was not able to make it to the meeting last week. I think Mike took my place on this one.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick. We had two resolutions on the street and CIP, and they were both recommended for approval and moved forward. First one is a resolution authorizing the expenditure of funds to acquire a portion of land from Dewey E. Johnson Revocable Trust for Dean's Trail Phase 2 project number ST 1801. Like I said, it was forward recommendation for approval, and
Move the resolution be approved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Further comments or questions? Anybody in the room need to speak to this? All right, Denise?
Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Watson? Overton?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell?
Carries 8-0.
All right, second resolution, like I said, it was recommended as well for approval. It's a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to terminate an interlocal agreement with the city of Johnson, which would be Johnson Road from Highway 412 to I-540. Johnson wishes to terminate. I'll let Ernest, if anybody's got any questions, expand on that.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Whenever that project was completed, the city entered into an agreement with the city of Johnson that the city of Springdale would maintain the road for 20 years, the entire length. Johnson now wishes to scale that back to where they maintain the part in their city and we maintain the part in our city, which we like, because they're planning on doing some additional improvements on the Johnson side. So this would accomplish that.
Okay. All right, any other comments or questions? All right, Denise?
Williams?
Yes.
Watson? Overton?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell? Jaycox?
Carries 8-0.
All right, item 14, Parks and Recreation Committee, Chairman Mike Lawson. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. We got one item. It was recommended to move forward as well. It is a resolution. I'll read it. A resolution authorizing the execution of a contract for architect services for the roof repair at Rabbit's Foot Lodge.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I know that we've got, Karen, you want to make some comments? You're welcome to come at this time. Then we'll have, of course, the council will have another opportunity if they need it. Hey, Gary?
I didn't want to miss anything, so I wrote it all down.
One, Jim. Jim, good one.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak with you about Rabbit's Foot Lodge. My name is Karen Compton, and I sold the Rabbit's Foot Lodge property to the city in 2014. My goal here is to protect Rabbit's Foot Lodge, which I find to be dilapidated, perhaps even dangerous. I don't want to chide or be harsh, but as you know, the house is on the National Historic Registry and one of only a few in all of Northwest Arkansas. I think you would agree that the house is a Springdale treasure. The contractual agreement that we made 6 years ago stated that the city would maintain the exterior, facade, and interior structure in good condition. In my opinion, the city has not adhered to the agreement, and it pains me greatly to say that. I'm here to seek your assurance that you will make things right and will honor your commitment made 6 years ago to protect and maintain it. It was a promise and also a contractual agreement between the city and me. We need to honor that. I'd like to tell you my experience as the self-appointed steward of the property since 2014. My desire was to downsize, but not sell and have the property developed. As you know, the house is surrounded on 3 sides by J.B. Hunt Park, and the best use for it was for the city to take stewardship of the property. Though the land has been well cared for, the lodge itself is in serious disrepair. I made many visits to the property to assess the state of the lodge. I visited the mayor twice a year looking for a timeline for repairs, assurances that contractual promises would be kept, and that the lodge's function would invite people to visit it. After the bond extension, I was assured that the parks budget would have the money to restore it in 2018 dollars. I even visited with Mr. Clements, the architect, but money from the bond extension did not go to renovation. This February, I visited the house, and I became alarmed at the neglect of the property and called the mayor to once again discuss it. At this time, I heard that there was a grant pending for the roof, but I was concerned because of the many previous assurances. If the grant fell through, then the house truly would fall in. I felt that I had no choice but to hire an attorney to get the city's attention. And I've incurred $5,000 in legal fees, which I do not believe should have fallen on me. To my surprise, in June, KNWA did an investigative report on the lodge, filming the roof with the gaping hole in it, the sagging porch surrounded for years by caution tape, and other signs of neglect. My attorney has worked with the Arkansas Historical Preservation Program on the easement to protect Rabbit's Foot Lodge. That was also part of the contractual agreement committed to in 2014, but not done. And he and I have worked with the city to hopefully move the project forward. Here we are today. I commend you for the resolution to fix the roof. As you know, the restoration is in 4 phases. Phase 1 for the roof replacement, and the $62,000 is only a fraction of that cost. Phase 2 is for exterior carpentry and log repair. The porch is phase 3, but to me, without it, the house looks like it is in shambles. Like I said, there's caution tape around it and it sags. I implore you to pass your resolution on the roof and quickly allocate monies for the entire project, including phase 4, which is for ADA accessibility and landscaping. The lodge will not exist if we wait another 6 years to restore it. I ask that you make Rabbit's Foot Lodge a priority rather than an afterthought. It is also imperative that a permanent plan for the lodge be developed so that we do not have to go through this exercise again. There are many options for the future, and one must be put in place. With no plan, I doubt we can achieve the protection that Rabbit's Foot Lodge needs. I appreciate the hard work that the City Council does and would be happy to impart historical information and my knowledge of past construction or help in any way that I can as the restoration commences. Thank you for all you do for the community. Any questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
I'll just make a brief comment. I know we've got a motion for this first portion of Phase 1 with the roof. I can't argue really with anything that Karen has said. We were excited certainly to buy the property, and the lodge came with it, and we made a commitment. Some of you weren't here, but the rest of you were. And so we need to find a way to honor that commitment sooner rather than later. So I hope after this is hopefully approved, this first stage tonight, that we'll continue to keep this on the front burner and move it forward with identifying other ways to fund the improvements. The estimate we've got for the total improvements, and part of what happened on this was we did apply for a grant 2 years ago, the same year that that the museum applied for a grant for Fitzgerald Station, and they were awarded the grant and we were not for Rabbit Foot. We applied again this year and did receive the $62,000, which we're very thankful for. And this will allow us to, if you approve this tonight, to move forward with the much-needed roof repairs and a replacement, is to keep Kathy, keep our terminology right for Kathy. And then, but I think what we need to do, I've tried to continue to mention this in committee meetings as we move forward and as we talked about park funds and where we spend them, but at the same time, I've had no clear plan to present to you either, and so I just think as we move forward, we need to be very aware of how we can fund these repairs. These repairs, we first thought they were going to be about, the first estimates we got were for the complete package was between $700,000 and $800,000. When we actually, and it's not that we've done nothing, we hired a construction management firm to price it, to look at it after the architect did their work, their design work, and the pricing came through at about $1.8 million. That's a lot different than $700,000, $700,000 to $800,000. So it just made it a lot more difficult for us, especially with the budget constraints that we've had. I think I'm hopeful that we're in a position moving forward over the next year and a half where we can designate funds to make all these repairs. That doesn't mean we could also get a grant try for a grant for a specific portion of a phase for next year. I believe we can do that. We'll sure try. And we just need to stay on this, and so I hope you'll help me do that, and let's figure out ways to move this forward. It is a significant structure in the history of Springdale, and we made a commitment to take care of it when we got it, and so we need to honor that.
Do you have a cost for? We know what Phase 1 is going to cost. What Phase 2 will cost, what Phase 3? Is it broken down? It's broken down,
the phases are pretty much broken down into 4 pretty equal parts, which is what we asked. I will tell you, what you're approving tonight is not all of Phase 1. Okay. It's the most important part of Phase 1 because it's the roof. But there's more of Phase 1. The total of Phase 1 is over $400,000.
Could we have, by the next committee meeting or soon, a report on what those numbers are?
We can give you those numbers and what those phases include. We can show you the entire plans, as Karen and Gary have seen the plans that the architect prepared, and we can show you that, and we can really work hard on putting together a plan to move forward and how to fund it.
Thank you.
Okay.
And this $62,000, this will cover the entire roof, though?
The 62 plus, no, I think, Wyman, what was the total on the roof? We're putting some park money with that, or CIP. I guess it's CIP. I guess that's why we have it. No, we have it in parks, don't we? Say that again? Yeah, the estimate for the roof portion was about 90,000. 62,000 would come from the grant. Okay, any other comments or questions?
If we approve this grant, then we take the difference from out of CIP to completely replace the roof for Rabbit's Foot Lodge.
Were we talking about CIP? Is that where we were getting it, or were we getting it out of the park set aside, Wyman? Yeah, we need to get the bids for the roof.
He doesn't know until he takes the bids where he's going to get the money from. CIP or park set aside.
We have an estimate for 90,000, but it hasn't been actually hard bid.
Okay.
Okay? But we will apply the 62,000, and when we come back to you for the approval of the actual bid, then y'all can determine where you want to take the money from, whether.
That's for a total replacement of the roof.
Yes. We'll bring this to committee. Mr. Chairman, we'll bring this to Parks Committee next week. Is that okay? All right. Okay, is there any other comments before we vote on the resolution? All right, Denise?
Watson? Overton?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Evans? Powell? Yes. Jaycox?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 15 is the Finance Committee Chairman, Jeff Watson. Jeff?
So the Finance Committee had two items to bring forward tonight. The first had to do with the architectural services for a new roof on the Shiloh Meeting Hall. The title to that resolution is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract for architect services. The resolution was forwarded from the committee without recommendation because there were still some questions that council people had that we were hoping to get answered tonight. So, Alan is here.
Thank you. Last Tuesday after the council meeting, the committee meeting last week, I asked your questions of Architect Clements. I responded to them last Tuesday, and then received Kathy's question about warranty, and asked him about that and got you that on Friday. I'm hoping those answered your questions, but I'll see what I can do if they didn't.
Was the architect's response to the questions we got last Monday, was that in the packet? Or I know you sent it email.
Send an email to the council members and yourself.
Okay.
Alan, one of the things I asked was, why are we paying Clements the percentage we're paying them? The answer you got was because of the legality of the amount or something. Mm-hmm. What I'm asking, and I know they can do it, is I think it should be less of a percentage this time since they failed us last time.
Well, I will say I'm speaking for myself, although I think this is what Mr. Clements would say, is that the failure was totally on the nails of it and on that. And on that, I think he explained in my first one I sent out to you, is that his job is observational by law. The contractor on that job should have overseen the subcontractor, but the fact is that those nails, if the contractor did not oversee those nails, then it was his fault.
I've worked with architects a lot in my lifetime, a lot, and I've never seen one design a job and not oversee it somewhat. Okay?
Well, he has an obligation to be there, and he has an obligation to make sure the contract is met, but the contractor, the general contractor, would have been the one who would be on site and made that observation.
That's why you have so many people overseeing it.
Yeah. In part of that contract, part of the situation that was different last time than would be this time is that there was a general contractor on the project because it was more than just the roof, it was the belfry and the chimney work as well, and we hired other people for that.
I have three problems with this. Number one, Jim's right. The architect was paid a fee. He's asking 13% on this. He was responsible to ensure that stainless nails were placed on the job. He can't pass it off to anybody else. His responsibility. Number two is that there is no warranty on shake shingles,
That's right.
period.
That's right.
And number three, in all due respect for the architect's education and all, he doesn't know, come here from Sikkim about how to install a shake roof, because he didn't even address the questions we had about the solid decking. You can talk to any roofer in Northwest Arkansas familiar with installing shake shingles, and they'll tell you the proper procedure is not to use solid decking. It cuts the life of a shingle in half, period.
With respect to Mr. Overton, I believe he did answer the question that in 2008, when this was done, that there wasn't a requirement to do anything more. There wasn't a requirement for venting, and the venting, in fact, did have
Venting
nothing.
doesn't have anything to do with decking. The problem is he designed decking incorrectly to start with, period. And he's going to continue in this job too, and I can't support this architect.
He did say that, answering your question, there was no reason to remove the plywood decking to install shakes on the purlins, because at the time it was standard practice with standard details for installing the shakes over decking, and provided the attachment that showed you that that was standard at the time.
That is, well.
That, he has the expertise. I'm telling you what he said.
He doesn't have
in
much
response.
expertise if he doesn't know how to supervise the job.
Again, as he said, his job by the courts was observational, not that he would go with the least, but his observation is supposed to be it doesn't have to be more than a month. The job took, I think, best I can recall, maybe 3 months to do, and the roofing job itself, the nail part of that, was done within a week. The general contractor was one who knew what nails were there and should have alerted him. He did not.
Is he proposing to take the decking off this time?
No, he's adding the purlin in.
And what's that supposed to do?
That allows some venting to it.
To the deck?
Yes. So that any kind of rain, water, moisture that got in there does not cause mold. In this case, there would be no subcontractor. The roofing person would act as the contractor, and therefore the architect has direct supervision on the person doing the job.
Jim, maybe you can answer this. You've dealt with a lot of architects. Why do you need an architect to supervise a shake shingle roof? I had a shake shingle roof on my old house.
Well,
I didn't have an architect.
Yeah, I would question that myself, and I think I did question that, but at the same time, I think they told me they had to have an architect because of the building, because it's our public building or something.
Exactly, for
It's a historic preservation.
1871 building. In fact, it's the oldest public building in Northwest Arkansas.
Does that make a requirement that you have an architect for every work that's done?
We have to make sure that the historic preservation needs are met, and that's what the funding institutions, this is not being funded by the grant, but we have a conservation easement with the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, and they oversee what we're doing as well. So we have to have someone in who can design those in accordance with what the historic nature of the building is and historic preservation needs for that building.
The other thing, though, Jeff, is and I said it a while ago, but that architect's the one that designed it in the first place. That architect's the one that said it had to be stainless steel nails. You would think that architect was making sure the stainless steel nails was being put in. He should be making sure that his plans are being followed.
Yeah, and I'm like Mike, I've never heard of putting cedar shake on top of plywood.
The only thing that failed, again, was not the problem with the cedar on the plywood, but it was the wrong nails.
So I guess if the contractor had still been in business, which they are not, is that correct?
I do not know that they're not. I believe they're still in business.
So the architect has no way to go to the contractor if it's the contractor that didn't do what they should have done?
He has no legal recourse. The only one who had legal recourse is the city, because this contract with the general contractor was signed by the city and the general contractor.
But look, I understand the obligations of a contract and how an architect works, but I also understand reality. And if they're up there using nails in, what did you say, it took 2 days? How long did it take?
About a week.
About a week. I'm not sure every aspect. I'm not sure it seems to me like part of this should fall on the contractor as well, because they had the specs that they were supposed to use, and but we are where we are, so.
Alan, is there an architect required for this project? Is there another architect that's capable of doing it?
There are not many architects who do historic preservation work, so that would limit the number. Secondly, for whatever it's worth, Mr. Clements has been on this job since 2005, has seen us through all 4 phases of it, and knows this project in more detail than anyone in this room, certainly. And he would be the only person that I'd really trust on it at this point.
I guess to the comments that you're hearing tonight, I think everybody did trust him to do this. Contracted to do the job. Why would that trust still, I guess the question comes down to, is there another architect? Even though this one's been on this project since '05, is there someone else? I don't know.
All I know is that we want someone who has worked on historic buildings. Those number of people are limited in the state, so I don't know beyond that. That's what I do know.
We could reach out to some other architects, at least put it out there, or maybe he'll be willing to take his percentage down in compensation to the city for the mistakes that were made.
One of my concerns, of course, is I'm already worried. When we submitted the grant in March, and we would know in June, assuming we got it, I still was worried about problems with leakage, and so more time is an issue, of course.
Is there a way to to put something to prevent damage? You know, I know there's many people that when there's something damage to their roof, they can tarp it for a period of time or
it's
something like
that.
that.
It's a little more difficult with shake roofs, because they're fragile, and so getting up there and being on them makes it difficult. I don't know that, I'm not an expert, so I don't know the answer to that, but that is a difference with the shake rather than a shingle.
I mean, instead of just letting it die, I think maybe we at least talk to the architect, see if he's willing to make a compensation to the city for this project, or maybe look at other architects from now until, I don't know, 2 weeks.
I'm not sure I understand what you're talking about in terms of compensation.
Well, if he lowers his percentage, help me out here.
Just for
the mistakes
made for the project.
Okay.
So I think what Amelia's asking, and I'm not going to put words into your mouth, is that within 2 weeks, there are other architects that could possibly do this? Adjust his percentage for this project? But Bill?
I will just say again, this is what I know. For those of you who've had experience in construction, in renovation, in repairs, you'll forgive my perhaps ignorance on it, but I was involved in this project very closely as well. The contractor on the roof was there, the general contractor on the roof. He had a subcontractor who installed the shakes. That subcontractor, not the general contractor, bought the equipment, the nails and the shakes. The contractor saw those, he should have known. However, it's certainly possible and even likely that the subcontractor loaded his nail gun with nails and just went up and did it, and the contractor didn't look. In the course of doing that, I think it was about 3 months this whole roof project took. Mr. Clemens was up here numerous times. But assuming, and perhaps wrongfully, but that nails that was in the project that the contractor should have seen, that the subcontractor should have seen, went in, and then 12 years, 11 and a half years later, due to those nails being wrong, the shakes blow off, and that's when we first realized that the nails were wrong. I think the window for someone to identify that those were the wrong nails is small, and the only person whose responsibility besides the subcontractor who chose them was the general contractor. There was no way anyone else could look, myself, any of my employees, or Mr. Clements would come, other than saying is, did you make sure they were stainless steel? So if anything on his part failed, to me, it was asking that question, not in the fact that the wrong nails were used.
Alan, I want you to know that I in no way blame you or your staff. Okay, you guys are doing a great job.
I'm a defender of this man in what he does, and although we all wish we had paid attention to every detail there was, that wasn't the case. And the one, perhaps the smallest detail, is what came down to the problem for us.
I imagine in working with historic buildings that the attention to detail is extremely important. I mean, not my opinion, I think that am I wrong, that that's probably held to even a higher standard because the codes to meet are a lot. Unfortunate.
This, a shake roof done properly, the life, I think we talked about it, the life expectation, I had in my mind 20. Is that 20 years came up sometime?
Again, there's no.
I know there's no warranty.
Warranty on the shakes. What Mr. Clements is going to put in his specs is for a 20-year installer's warranty on them. So if something like that happens, it's 20 years on that.
And we had a roof for almost 12, 11 and a half
Yes.
before things started falling apart.
Yes, 11 and a half years when the shakes started to pop. There was no manufacturer's warranty on the shakes, and the warranty on the roof was 10 years. On the installation was 10 years.
Now we're going to have a 20-year warranty.
That is what was going to be in the specifications. It's an installer's warranty, so it's not on the shakes themselves, but it's the wrong nails would be taken care of. The wrong installation, didn't do an overlap they're supposed to do, didn't do the, it would be on in that warranty.
A limited warranty is year 18. Another big surprise.
No. Full warranty, yes. And this will be part of the specs that will be written, and so if you have particular things you want in those specs, that's up to the architect to include them in there, if that's part of the deal.
I'm not in construction.
Nor am I.
Alan, who advised you that it was the wrong nails that were used and not the deck that caused the problem with the roof?
When the shakes started coming off, and I brought some of them last time, that you can see them, I didn't bring them this time, we noticed some of them still had the nail heads in them.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the rust around the nails and the fact that they broke off that way, and we started discussing that.
Right.
When Mr. Clements came up, we looked at them, and we observed that they were in fact galvanized and not stainless.
Okay. And did he tell you at that time that it was all the nail's fault and didn't have anything to do with the decking? Because you understand what the problem is with decking. It causes the cedar to hold water, which causes the nails to rust. So his explanation, it was all the nails. How do we know it was not the decking?
There's no, in the places that you can see in those photos that I had, I don't know absolutely the answer, but in those photos you can see that the tar paper is still intact.
Have we had an experienced, long-standing roofing company give an opinion as to what happened, or if this fix that he's now proposing is going to work?
We have not, but I will say that several things are being done. One is we're putting the ice and what's being considered is putting the ice and water, ice and rain barrier down between the roof, between the decking and the felt, and then the shakes. The stainless nails would be used.
My concern is that the shakes are still going to hold water. They're still going to soak it up.
And I can't say they won't. I don't know that, but by putting the ice and rain barrier there, that's another attempt, which wasn't the standard then, and really isn't the standard now. It's still somewhat new, but by adding that in, that should really make a big difference as well.
See, I'd like to know if, say, Foster Roofing, they've been around a long time.
Here's the problem.
Have they ever done that?
Yeah. Here's part of the problem. And we experienced this back in the day as well as now when we started trying to get estimates. There are just darn many companies that want to do shakes. And this is part of the problem. They're fragile, they're wonky.
There's not too many people who want to get up on top of that building.
Jeff,
There's that too.
to answer your question, I checked with the owner of NWA Roofing, who's done roofing here for 30-plus years, and he said there's only one way to install a shake roof, and it isn't with solid decking. Period. It's with spaced 1x4s, 30-pound felt, et cetera. But if you talk to any roofing contractor...
So see, that's my concern, is how do we know that this fix is going to be a fix?
Well, all I know is when I talk to, based on my construction experience plus talking with legitimate, long-time commercial roofing contractors that have installed shakes, all types of roofs, they agreed that solid decking under shakes cuts the life of a shake in half. And if you've got no warranty on a cedar shake, and you get a warranty from a contractor, all he's going to warrant is his labor.
That's correct.
His labor to say that it was installed properly.
That's correct.
And you have to prove that when he has a leak, that his labor, that he made a mistake with his labor, which is most difficult to do. The warranties come from the manufacturers as far as the life of the product. When they start talking about a 20-year or 30-year warranty, it does not cover labor. Typically, a contractor will warrant his too, and that's it.
Can I make a suggestion? Because we're sure not going to crack this nut tonight. Could we put it on committee for next week? And we may not have everything we need by then, but let's reach out to some roofing companies for, let's see what other architects, this is the situation we're in, is we've got a historic building that we've received grant money in the past.
Absolutely.
From the Arkansas
a quarter of the cost of
Historic Preservation. Yeah. So there are certain requirements that we're going to have to meet, but we've got a building that has to have a roof.
And it has to be done right.
And it has to be done right. So we know we got to meet those things, and we need to do it soon. So let's, if this is what the council wants to do, it doesn't sound like you're wanting to approve this contract tonight. But we know we got to do something, and we know it's got to be a certain something that is allowable on this building. So I think we're going to have to get busy, Alan, and try and get some other, I guess we're going to have to see if there are other architects. I mean, I think this architect does a good job. We just approved a roof for Rabbit Foot that this architect has designed. Now, it's a totally different deal. It'll be shingles, asphalt shingles. But we've got to move forward with something. And if we're not willing to, if we're not comfortable approving this tonight, then we better get some more options and talk about it again soon.
Well, getting another architect, again, time is a factor, and I apologize, but that's the way it is. I'm not saying do this because we haven't had a choice. But getting someone who's available now, starting now, working on the design, among those few who can do it, it may be difficult, I don't know. The number of companies that will bid on this is going to be small.
Right.
And the number of companies now that see that 20-year warranty, which is, I agree, what we should have, is going to be perhaps even smaller.
Right.
So I think we're really fine-tuning this. And again, this is not my expertise, but I will say, even those of you who have worked in construction, know architecture and things, that to the best of my knowledge, to everything that I have researched more than I wish I had, the issue from the former roofing was not about the decking, was not about the moisture, was not about anything but the nails failing. And so
That's what your architect told you.
that's what the architect told me, and I've talked to other folks, including the two roofing companies, Pinnacle and Top Hat, that gave us an estimate last fall when we were looking for something to work on. So that.
Alan, you've done a fabulous job.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Well, clearly not, because I haven't got the, I must
A
have.
suggestion. Mayor, is it possible using this architect, if we know who the installer is and the experience they have, that would give some confidence as we move forward?
Well, the 20-year warranty helps me,
Well, it's a help.
but
I'm like Alan, I don't know if you're going to be able to get anybody to bid with a 20-year warranty.
We could only find two companies, as I gave you names last fall, who would even give us a estimate on it. When we did the roof in 2008, we had 3 bidders on it. And I'm not sure anybody else, again, that wasn't with a 20-year, and that may make it more difficult, but important.
Yeah, I think that's gonna
well,
make
who
a
knows
real
in this atmosphere now
But- true.
what we may get.
Yeah.
It may be difficult anyway, but we got to get a roof on that building.
So is there
So-
just a small amount of architects that work on preservation? Is
Yes.
that what it is?
Yes.
Does the Arkansas Preservation, do they have some sort of list that you can go by?
They
to-
are people that
to
we
do-
can go to, yes. I think there may be one in this area, I'm not sure, but I think most are not in Northwest Arkansas.
I think, yeah. If we're looking for a savings, I don't think we're going to find it.
Right.
But
I would like to go with Kathy's suggestion.
but if, we do need to have confidence in the design.
Well, you're having confidence in different kind of roof, but a confidence in him in rabbit foot.
Right.
And that's a much more expensive roof right there. Different type of roof, however.
Yeah. Do we want to send it back to committee? What do we want to do?
Do not consider just getting the name of whoever the architect proposes to do this installation and have it, so there's some level of confidence.
It has to go out for sealed bid, I believe, is what
Yeah,
we-
it hasn't been,
And that's why the design is needed, that's what goes out for the...
you got to have a design to go to bid
I
with
wasn't asking
specs.
for a bid, I was just asking if there's, no, I don't know.
Well, as I said, the two companies I know, at least when we asked for an estimate, both Springdale companies were willing to give us an estimate last fall. That was not based on any design, that was just to give us some rough ideas for the grant.
How long will it take to repair the roof? Did they say that?
Well, like I said, the roof took about a week when we put it on, to take off and do all that work. It took about a week last time. But it's getting to that point of design, sealed bids, project, move forward. At the current, when we had the grant that we submitted to start around this time, we hope to be done by December, November, December. And that's what's getting everything, including the demo on it. Is there, in general, council members, is there a lack of trust such that we cannot agree on this tonight? Is that the major factor? Or are you willing to give it a shot on this? If we want, you can have more oversight on it. I know Gary will have more oversight because he's overseeing directly the contractor, but if you want more oversight into the design, the bid process, et cetera, we can work that in.
Finance. Yes.
I mean, I'm reminded of a Seinfeld episode where someone says, is there an architect with historical preservation experience in the area? There happens to be one who's here for the next item, but I think he may have a suggestion he wants to throw out if the council wants to hear it.
Do you get a percentage?
No, sir.
Come on up. Tell us who you are.
My name is Tommy Jameson Architects, Little Rock. I was here 2 years ago with the Hollises, and I'm here tonight with the Hollises. And I'm sorry for jumping in. I know Gary.
Pull that mic up just a little bit. Thank you.
I know Gary Clements well. We have competed on projects for decades. My suggestion is, because of your time frame, because of the grant deadlines, retain. I mean, you're looking tonight to vote to hire Clements or not. He's familiar with the project. He's made a mistake. He hasn't made a mistake. He's the architect for a project that had a mistake made on it. I would suggest that you go ahead and hire Clements and convey to Clements the concern about solid decking. The standard in the past has always been on stripping. And convey this dialogue that's going on tonight to him, and let him come and maybe meet with your committee during his design phases before he puts the project out for bid, and explain to you under that venue what the plan is and what his recommendations are, and then that can all be ferreted out. But you won't be losing time by backing up and looking at another architect. There's only about 4 of us in the state that do preservation work. I'm retiring. I'm sorry.
You don't want to get up on that roof?
I don't have a problem. Didn't have a problem getting on that roof years ago, but the time has come for me to go into semi-retirement. But that way, if you go ahead and retain Clements, but put him on the hot spot, and have him come back and maybe make a presentation to committee or to the council of what his recommendations are and why, ferret out those issues during design, and that way you won't lose your time.
Well, that's a very helpful suggestion,
I was just chomping at the bit outside. So, anyway, that was all I was going to say.
I appreciate Mr. Jameson, thank you, and your work, your name proceeds, thank you. And 4 is the number, thanks.
No, I don't have a problem with that at all. In fact, that's what I need, is some comfort to know that this plan that he has now is going to work. So is he going to be in a position to come explain it to us?
If that's part of it, we'll do that. I mean, he comes up frequently for Rabbit Foot and for here, so he's in Springdale.
But he'll come up, now, he did have some...
He's going to bring his son to college on the East Coast. That's in, I think, another week.
Okay.
I think in another week.
So if this was to be approved, he could come up before any actual work
Oh.
needed to be, I mean, he
He
could adjust he could answer questions about the
Yes.
design.
Yes, and he's
to
got
either
what-
get the committee comfortable or change the design.
Exactly.
Well, let's do that then.
I agree with Jeff.
You're the chairman.
Well, we don't have a motion.
Oh, okay. I just heard we should do that, but I guess that's not a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to approve this resolution contingent on everything else we've said, so that Mr. Clements would then come for
Well, is it really contingent, or you're just telling Alan that
Tonight is to hire this firm.
we want him to come talk to us and
Yes,
give us some
that-
comfort level?
Yeah, this resolution doesn't approve the design.
No, this just approves hiring him to do design, to work at the sealed bids, to oversee it, and to bring it to conclusion.
And to give us some comfort on the design.
Comfort is what I wrote down.
Thank you. That good? So just basically, motion to approve the resolution? Is there a second?
And the solid decking is what, another issue
Part
that
of
we're
that-
talking
part
about.
of the
Yep,
conversation.
that's what I've written down as well.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Overton,
No.
Reed,
No.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans, Howe, Jaycox,
Yes.
Williams,
No.
Watson,
Yes.
Carries 5-3.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Sorry for such a hard time.
Thank you.
It's not fun being in the middle, is it?
Let's see, the other resolution, I'm having a hard time finding it.
The grant, FAA
Grant for the airport, yes. There was a FAA grant for a runway, or help me out. What? Runway extension. And I can find it to read it.
108, Jeff.
The title of that resolution is a resolution accepting a grant from the Federal Aviation Administration and authorizing the mayor to sign the grant agreement. The the committee forwarded this resolution to council with a recommendation for approval.
Move the resolution pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. Any other comments or questions? Okay, roll call.
Reed,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Evans, Howe,
Yes.
Jaycox,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes. Carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 16, Health and Sanitation Committee, Chairman Amelia Williams. Amelia, let me ask, we've had a long meeting so far. Is everybody doing okay? Don't need a break? Okay.
This is.
My back teeth are floating a little bit, but other than that, we'll just
Put
keep
away
going.
the-
Yeah.
Understatement.
All right, Amelia.
Health and Sanitation Committee met. We have an ordinance ordering the raising, demolition, and removal of certain residential structure with the city of Springdale, Arkansas, located at 215 West Maple Avenue, to declare an emergency and for other purposes. Item forwarded to the committee with recommendation for approval. Have any?
If you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good evening, council, mayor. I wanted to cover a timeline a little bit, Amelia, if I could, because last week I didn't have all my paperwork with me. Sorry about that. So I originally sent 3 letters on this particular property, and I sent those letters out October 31st of 2016. I typically, the ordinance, when we have this, it's for 30 days. I typically let it, go a little longer, just see if I get any response or any activity. On this particular one, I did turn this into Ernest's office on 5/17 of 17. So it gave ample time for a response. In fact, all 3 of these letters came back to me as unclaimed. So the only address I had was the 215. So then after that, Ernest's office sent out letters and however else he's able to reach people by mail, by advertisement or whatnot. So that's what brought us and got us to the point where we had him in front of council roughly January 2nd of 2018, I believe it was. And at that point is when they started with getting some permits and talking about the architectural issues they were experiencing and, trying to get worked out. So then fast forward to our conversation we started last week. Again, it's been about a year on each project that they have permitted on that they've called for anything. And I did this in 3 different phases. I did it in one was for the demolition of 3 structures in the back. They did get a permit for that in April of 2018 and finished it pretty promptly as far as the 2 structures they took down. From meeting with their contractor yesterday on the site, those 2 structures are gone. And the one that remains, they talk as if the Hollises want to rehab that at some point. They don't have a permit on it. The other structure I sent was for the garage, which they have done nothing to, and that's the one they're telling you about. There's personal items, I guess, they're still trying to get out or get arranged or whatever. And then there's the house, which they have gotten a permit. Again, it's expired, and they've even got, I think both the permits are for the house and for the addition to the house. So that brings us to that point. The contractor, which I don't believe is here tonight, but he did call me and invited me out yesterday, so I went out there around 2 o'clock. Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see him. He's hiding back there. So we met out there, and I did walk through the structure. I mean, what is standing there on the original house behind the brick facade seems to be sturdy. He did talk about the fireplace is what's really holding them up from getting an actual roof on it. It does have a roof, but it's just basically roughed in at this point. Again, structure's there. He's not obviously ready for a rough in because it doesn't have his electrical, it doesn't have plumbing, doesn't have heating and air, which we require for our rough ins. We did discuss that. He told me about the fact that they were going to try to rehab the building in the back at some point. It was discussed about the garage, about trying to get things out of it. And the sad thing is the part that they have their stored items, the roof's off. And I'm not a antiques expert or anything, but I don't think water and wood or water and anything is going to mix real well long term. I tried to encourage him to encourage his client to get rid of as many obstacles out there as far as trucks that are still there that don't need to be there anymore, old stuff that's fallen apart, clean up the area, cut down dead trees, anything as an effort to make it look like a lot of progress is happening. So like I said, I'll leave it at that. Mr. Jameson has been in contact with me. He's the one who tried to, and I told him he needed to try to give us a timeline. And after last week's conversation, I definitely agree that we need to have some more milestone timeline so that we know how long we're going to be. Because again, we have been on this since October 2016. So I'll leave it for anyone who's talked. So.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
You said, is there such a thing as a demolition permit? What were the permits on the house?
Yes, sir. On the house, even though he did take some structure down on it, not necessarily, we usually let that fall under the repair or renovation of a regular permit. There were 3 little bitty houses essentially in the back portion in the southeast corner of the property. So he did get a demo permit. One had a tree that had fallen on it, so that one's gone.
Okay, but primarily I want to focus on the main house.
Okay, yes, sir.
What permits were issued on that?
We have an alteration and an addition permit on the house.
So just one permit?
There are 2 separate permits.
Okay.
The alteration of what he's torn it back to alter that building, and then the addition will be to add on to it.
And how long are those permits, how long do they extend for?
In our office and by the ICC codes, they're good for 180 days.
So at least 6 months, and they can be extended, I assume,
Well, basically by calling for an inspection, pass or fail, from the date of that inspection, they would automatically go to 6 months. We typically, if we have permits, like we purge our files, kind of a yearly deal around January to catch up to make sure that things aren't being missed or not going too long. So we even give them a grace period there. But
right.
6 months without any activity from our office, they're technically expired. Yes, sir.
Right. So the minimum of 6 months is how long they would have, but oftentimes they're allowed additional time.
Yes,
if
sir.
Things are progressing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But in this case, they were not.
Not by our office's records. I mean, obviously they had done things.
When did those 2 permits expire?
The one that's for the addition, and we had done a few footings on it. The last time we did anything on there was in September of 19, so almost exactly a year ago. And then for the alteration of the house, the last time we was out there was August 21st of 19. So
they expired then?
They're expired, yes, sir.
Wasn't there an issue with cats?
With the cat,
With cats in one of the buildings in the back?
Feral cats?
Feral cats?
okay, Mayor, if I can, when I walked the property with the contractor yesterday, obviously I told you about the houses to the west. I have it coming up for condemnation as well. You go to the back of this property, and their property goes back to the west behind that house. I did see where somebody has been putting out food for animals. I don't know who. I mean, what I hear would be hearsay, but someone's been trying to feed the animals. I basically told the contractor, if somebody's even next door, since it's on our red tag list, and they're not there, not supposed to be there, call the police. So someone is feeding animals there. And I was explained yesterday that I guess a Humane Society picked up a lot of the feral cats, but there are several that have come back because someone's feeding the animals.
Are they located in one of the buildings that's to be torn down?
I guess I should. It's a person who lived at this address who now is supposedly somewhat squatting at the next address, is what I'm told. I really don't. I mean, I hadn't seen the gentleman, and obviously, if we do, we would have the police get him out. But I haven't seen him there. But it's supposedly a family member who was residing at this 215 is now somewhat staying at 305 and feeding cats. I don't really want to put him under the bus, I mean. So I mean, and again, I hate to say that. I mean, we got an attorney on the council right there. I mean, it's hearsay. I hadn't seen him, so that protect me, Ernest. So.
Anyone else that would like to speak to?
Tom, if I'm not mistaken, when I was head of this committee back then, and I think we actually passed this to raise it, and the Hollises came and asked us not to do it, and we gave them chance after chance, and they came in and they done some, but then they've just quit.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
If they haven't done anything for your office to inspect in any way, or called your office telling you what, or keeping you up to date on where it's at and everything, I don't know how much more we can do. This is in a neighborhood where we got people building nice homes, and we're trying, don't get me wrong, I love historical buildings. I think it's great, but we've got to get something done.
Yes, sir.
Tommy, one step away. Would you define what your department would consider progress? Electric box? Demolition? I'm just asking.
Yeah, typically on a new house, I mean, 6 months goes by and you're working on it, it's done. I mean, I don't want to talk with Mike Overton here with 50 years of experience, but my uncle who has 50 years of experience can say perfect construction could be 3 or 4 months. If you just had no problems, you could build a typical house. So obviously this isn't a typical house. You've heard from other department heads, that, tearing something apart, it is detailed. I understand that. Having an architect that's overseeing it, trying to put things back to period correct is definitely, a challenge. Costs go through the roof. I mean, I just redid a house myself again. Costs go through the roof. I mean, you just never know what you expect. So, I mean, I guess we can't say it's typical, but I mean, obviously for me to say that, I try to be fair with everybody.
Tom,
I would have liked to have seen more progress, absolutely.
I think what she's asking you, what would you consider concrete progress, say within 30 or 60 days, to prove that this is moving forward?
Well, I guess based on what I see out there yesterday, going forward from here, I mean, once they've established their permits again, it's got that structure that's there now in 30 days, 60 days needs to be in the dry.
So my question would be then, if in fact this were passed without an emergency clause, and if within the next 30 days they came in, pulled out a permit, and demonstrated to you that they were working on the project, that would be significant, would it not?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, honesty from the people I've spoken with, I think it's there. I think that we're dealing with, a lot of different things. You know?
I think all, the council, the owners, everybody has good intentions, but what we really need to see is some real performance. And
That's what we said last year, though.
I know, and my point is, I think as a motivator, if in fact this passes, they'd have 30 days to do something. And if in fact they did take an action in 30 days to show that they come in, pull a permit, engage a contractor, get started on some activity at all.
Yeah, I don't understand why they didn't come in last November or last December or last January.
I understand they could have had, I don't know, they could have any number of problems, but what I'm looking for is what would be a solution to be fair to the citizens of Springdale and reasonable to show these folks that once again we were willing to do something. And again, if they didn't do anything in 30 days, the ordinance takes effect and we're off to the races.
And Mr. Overton, I totally agree, because that's right, and I don't know that Mr. Jameson, when he wrote the timeline, or whoever came up with the timeline, you know, I like to have a timeline, because at least we have something in writing then where they were going to get to this certain state. And I don't necessarily think that the timeline that they had provided last week says that, because this body and the city at large needs to know when this is getting done, because like I said, there's lots of things happening in that area, and people have put significant money into their properties too, and they want to be able to enjoy it just like, you know, this person will eventually. And I think it needs to have some major improvement.
So we've asked this before, Tom, that if we pass an ordinance like Mike's saying, and then certain things happen during that 30 days, or maybe this question for Ernest, how do we back up on the ordinance?
Well, if you remember, in one of my projects, we had a gentleman who had come in and claimed that he had done everything that was asked for. I don't know if it was the mayor or other council persons that had driven by, but I also provided pictures at that night where he hadn't. You know, yeah, he had put, you know, $8,000 or $10,000 into it and, you know, fixed a few things. And because we had passed it, then I did tear that house down, because he just...
But let's say they did some magnificent things during the 30 days. How would we go back on the ordinance if we pass it tonight?
If he did significant things, I mean, then Ernest has generally let me be the judge to say, hey, that, you know, if you're satisfied with the progress or whatnot, then we go with that. That's why yesterday, speaking with the contractor, encouraging him to cut the dead trees down, get rid of the trucks. It's not the construction, because he had a brick mason there yesterday that were reappointing bricks and doing some work to the front. It's like I said, the roof is there. It's just not dried in. He didn't have an actual impervious roof yet. But I mean, and I explained to the contractor as well, I mean, if he keeps me in the loop and he keeps us informed and we can see progress, I mean, I'll fight for him. I'll help him out. I mean, you know, you hear a lot of bad things about me, but I'm willing to help him. I know they've put some money in there. I don't, like the mayor, I don't necessarily think he's put all of the money that was spoken last week just into what's there today, but it's the whole project, you know, the demolition, the architects and everything else. So.
Aren't architects like attorneys, more like anchors to a project?
No comment on that from me. I get myself in enough trouble. I don't need any more.
I know Larry's going to want to talk.
Absolutely.
We did meet this past week, and Larry said I'll let him speak to it, but said that dollar figure was what they'd spent on repairs, which surprises me still, but it is what it is. I will say, to Jeff's point though, especially that, and Larry will confirm that we had this discussion, if they're able to do enough to get to what was on the timeline as an October being dried in, then what? Because then, I mean, it's been like pulling through molasses every
Yes, sir. Mayor, maybe this answers Jeff's and Mr. Overton's question, Mr. Watson and Mr. Overton's question better. How the code reads is they can ask for extensions, and I like to have them before they expire. And depending on how far the progress is, I don't have to extend it for 6 months.
I guess my question in an overall sense, and this is more of a question for Larry probably, and for his client, is how many times are we going to have to vote to tear that down before it gets actually finished? Because that seems to be when the work starts, is when we're about to vote to tear it down. Go ahead, Larry, I'm sorry.
No, I want to be sure I wasn't stepping in too soon.
I'm done.
Good evening, everybody. As you know, I'm Larry McCready. I represent the Hollises. I was here last week. I tried to give an update on what has taken place over the past year and a half and what has been spent. I think I can admit that I probably didn't do a very good job. What I tried to do, and I think what I'm going to reiterate at the start, is I think what the discussion about the Rabbit Foot Lodge makes very, very clear is that historic rehabilitations, they take a lot of time and they take a lot of money. And I don't think this project is any different in that respect. I'm not suggesting it's completely analogous, but I think that it's important to keep that in mind. This is not a standard renovation. One other point that I do want to make in response to what Mr. Evers said is that, yes, the original letter was mailed in 2016. My clients took ownership of the property on June 22nd, 2018. Now, it's his family that had it, but they didn't take ownership of the property until then. The letter that went out in 2016 was to Philip Hollis, my client's brother, who was the administrator of the estate that owned the property at that point. So, and I think, and I've got the letters in there, the one on the main residence, there was probably 84 items that were listed as items that were of concern of health and safety. I don't think a single one of those exists today. And so as it relates to the main structure, and I don't want to speak for Mr. Evers, but I brought some other people with me tonight that are available to answer questions, the contractor, the architect as well, but I don't think that there is any danger to the health or safety of the citizens of Springdale as it relates to the main structure tonight. In relation to the expenses that have been put into this project by my clients, I shared an approximate of $300,000 last week. I didn't have the details on that. I've sent a letter to the City Council in the meantime that demonstrates a whole lot more money than $300,000 has gone into it. The $300,000, it's slightly less than that. Doesn't include all the fees, doesn't include my fees, but that are hard costs into the project itself. I wasn't sure last night or last week, Mr. Mayor, whether it included the land acquisition costs. It does not. When you put the land acquisition costs, and this is in the letter, we're just about at $500,000 on this project. There's more work that needs to be done. Everyone will acknowledge that, and certainly I understand the frustration of the City Council in continuing to get it. But my clients have owned this property for about 2 years, and I would say a whole lot has been done. Mr. Jameson can address that shortly about the work that has been to get there. Eric Hansen, who is the contractor on the project, who's been the contractor from the beginning, he's here as well, and he can answer questions about the progress that has taken place. But I would say that it's been significant. I don't think it's fair to compare it to a traditional remodel on a 20-year-old house. We're talking about a much different animal, as the discussion about Rabbit Foot Lodge, I think, exemplifies. So I would want to make those points. A couple other things that I do want to highlight that has taken place in the past week since the last meeting. Mr. Mayor, you were kind enough to give me some time so I could explain those finances to you. I appreciate that. I sent the letter to the City Council explaining that as well. I also sent out an invitation. I spoke with Mr. Watson. I don't think he got it, but we invited all the City Council out to the project to see it. Ms. Jaycox was kind enough to donate her time, and she was out there today and saw it as well. In addition, Eric Hansen, who's the contractor, as Mr. Evers mentioned, invited him out, and they met out at the project and toured it. Certainly, as it comes to the main residence, as I said, I don't think health and safety is a concern anymore. Is there additional work that needs to be done? Absolutely, and I think there is a plan, and it was not. It's not crystal clear. I'll try to clarify it tonight. The estimate is by October of 2020, in about 3 months, of the main structure that will be dried in. The roof will be on, the windows will be in, the doors will be in. That is doable in about 3 months. The funds are there to do it, and that is the goal that I think that both Mr. Jameson and Mr. Hanson can confirm is doable and is reachable. After that, the Hollises have some decisions about how much of the new addition to the project they want to put on with it. Finances is a decision. It is not the overriding one, but anytime somebody undertakes a project, that is a consideration. As they get closer to October 20, I think they will have the exact plan that they will be able to present. But that is the time frame that I think is real, is doable, and I think that they can commit to. The cats I know are a concern. I know it's a concern for the neighborhood. My clients do not live at the property. They do not allow anyone to live at the property, okay? I know they have some responsibility. I don't know where, there's Philip Hollis, my client's brother. I don't know where he lives. I don't know if he's coming onto the property and feeding the cats or not. I suspect he likely is, but it is not done with my client's permission, with their authority to come on there. There have been steps, there have been, and I think Mr. Hanson probably can address that more specifically because it was his workers that were involved in calling a cat rescue place to get some removed. They came back. We talked with Ms. Jaycox today, and she had a very good suggestion about how to address that problem, is working with the animal shelter, rehoming some of the females, but neutering the males. My clients will commit to doing so tonight to try to get rid of that cat population. But as we were out there at the property today, the food for the cats was not on my client's property, it was on the property next door. And it's, I think, a little bit unfair to try and to lay that entire problem at my client's feet when they're not the ones that are feeding it, and the food bowls weren't even on his property. So, but they're committed to trying to address it, and they're certainly willing to commit to what the idea that Ms. Jaycox had about dealing with that. The last thing is the stone building, and I addressed that a little bit last week, probably not in as much detail. That has languished a little bit. Focus has been on the main house, but that's not an excuse why more couldn't have been done. Some of the contents of the main house was moved to that stone building. We know what the importance of that now. Work has already started to get the area around it picked up. That will continue over the next couple of weeks. I suspect it will be finished, as well as getting the contents inside removed. So at that point, Mr. Jameson can come in and he can assess that building just as he did with the main residence to assess what can be saved and what can't be saved, and that they can then get started on that. There's one additional structure in the way back that was part of those three. Mr. Jameson, my clients wish to save that. I don't think it is a problem, but again, that is something that we can address and report back in this next 3-month time period if we're afforded it by the City Council. So those are the concrete things that my clients will put forth. As I said, I've got people here tonight who have more knowledge about this than I do. They're available to ask questions. Tommy Jameson, the architect on the project, who's been here on the project from day one. I think he is going to go through some of the things that have done and hopefully provide some context why the time frame has been what it has been. But I also think in some fairness, particularly considering it in the time frame with the Rabbit Foot Lodge, for example, the time period has not been unreasonable. Rehabbing, there were I think 5 additions. I'll let Tommy address that, but there were. You tear down some stuff to see what's there, to see what can be saved, and figure out what to do next. That was some of the process that took place that contributed to the time frame. And all I can do is stress my clients are committed to getting this finished. They want to get it finished. It's going to be I think a very good property that's going to contribute not only to the immediate neighborhood but to the city of Springdale. And so. I would ask that I think the best request is if we could table it and allow us to report back in October. And that would be the request, but certainly if we're afforded the time, there has been progress. More will be made in the next couple of months. I'm available for questions. I think Mr. Jameson also wants to go over some things.
Could I ask?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. After our conversation this afternoon, assured me, one of the things we talked about is that Tom would have unlimited access. Anytime that he needed to go, a phone call to you, or to whom?
I think to Mr. Hanson. Mr. Hanson, Eric Hanson is the contractor.
Okay.
He's been the contractor since day one. I believe the two know each other. I believe the two have communicated in the past and have met in the past. But I don't want to speak for him, but I will say, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, you will commit to, as often as you want to go out and see the property, certainly no more than, at least monthly, if they want to go out, if he wants to go out and see the progress that was made. The same people have been on this project from day one. There has never been any intent to exclude anybody from the project. One of the conditions at the outset was that a fence be erected around the project. It was, and it remains up there. And so the fence was there, and I think it was a good idea to make sure people were safe until it was, the property was secured, and we will keep that up. But it's not done to try to keep Mr. Evers or any other city official from coming and seeing what's going on. So, but absolutely.
I wasn't suggesting that.
I know you're not, and all I'm saying is that we are committed. You can call me, you can call Eric, you can call Tommy Jameson, you can call the Hollises. Anytime anybody wants to get at the property and see it. So absolutely, we're committed to doing that. Should we have done that in the past more? Probably. And to the extent that we didn't, that is our fault, and it won't be repeated. But there was never any effort to exclude anybody from seeing what was going on there.
Mayor, maybe this will help. I mean, what I was told from the contractor yesterday is they're essentially staying on this now on a long-term basis. Supposedly they had finances together. Long story short, if we were to, they're saying 3 months. I mean, why don't we let them renew this permit, and I'll put a 3-month expiration on it. It still works the same way as long as he calls for an inspection, that we would have it documented from our office, in addition to letting me come out and visit, which, he's never not. But I mean, if, that would at least shorten the time frame that we would give them. Like I said, we're going to let it expire for 6 months before I'm going to even say anything. And obviously, this is a special project. I'll keep extra eyes on it. It's not a problem.
I got a question, probably for Mr. Jameson. Maybe for the contractor, I'm not sure. To define dried in October, I know that with future plans to add new construction on the back, how would the back be finished? The back of the existing structure be finished in the meantime?
Right now, it's covered with weatherproof sheathing with a factory finish, a zip system, and ice and water, not ice and water shield, but Tyvek. So it's temporarily secured with further framing and Tyvek out to prevent water from going into the basement. I can show you pictures. I've got them queued up. I'd run through them really quick if I could do that. I think it would be very helpful for you all to understand.
I'll leave that up to the chair.
What's
person.
happened.
Yeah.
I can do it in 10 minutes.
I don't need to see any photos, but the rest of the council may feel different, but
Well, it would help you
okay.
understand why it's taken this long. It's a sequence of shots since February of 18, showing the progress.
Sure.
Okay, Larry,
Yep.
would you do ours? We know which button to push over here.
Yeah, while you're bringing those up, let's take a 5-minute break, because
Okay,
I've been hurting for a while.
understand. Thank you.
Let's everybody run that out together.
We'll reconvene at 10 till 9.
Thank you. My wife bought this. Okay, are we ready?
yes, sir.
Okay. Historic photograph looking down, I can't remember the name of the street that goes to Maple, but here's the house. This is just two images, put it in an historic perspective. This was built by John Holcomb. The date that's been put around is 1861. The brick matches the Caudle House on the other side of the railroad tracks. I went by it today and looked at it. This is the house in about 1940, before it was painted. I think that other photograph was after. This photograph has given us a lot of detail as to the front porch. At this point in time, the house had gone through 4 major iterations. Its construction in the 1860s, Victorian changes in the 1880s or 90s, colonial revival changes with the pedimented front porch, probably after the turn of the century, and then 20s, the additions in the back were significantly changed. And then the Hollises have had it since 1961, and Mr. Hollis continued making many changes. This is February of 2018. This is when I came to town and took these photographs and came and presented to you that evening, just to simply say this is indeed a historic building. The walls are 3 courses of handmade brick. It is definitely a very historic building in the history of Springdale. And looking back over a determination of eligibility that Glenda did, it was sold in 1881 by the first mayor of Springdale, Joseph Holcomb, because it was built for one of his sisters possibly, and he was probably an executor of the estate. This is the picture looking from the sort of the southwest, looking northeast, and you see the 2-story addition in the back. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 major additions, plus the garage is 5. You know, it was so complex and convoluted inside. This is why partly why it's taken a lot of time. I needed to present a quality design to my client. I needed to understand all of these additions and when they happened. This was so in May of 18, Hanson was retained. In June, we issued drawings in March. In June, this is when the first 2 additions had been taken off. The garage was down. Right into that wheelbarrow, we found a cistern.
June of 18?
Pardon?
June of 18?
Yes, sir. And at this point, we thought, well, maybe we can keep some of this. Further work and further peeling away of layers. There were literally layers upon layers of construction. Things were just veneered over. We couldn't really understand what we had. This was the front at about that time, getting the front porch shored up. Those brick columns are from the 1920s. The 2-story columns are from around 1910. The little turned columns are probably from the 1880s. That's okay, Larry. I'm talking with my hands and I'm flagging him. Go ahead to the next one. And then, after Mr. Hollis died, I believe, Mrs. Hollis, Marjorie, when she was still living there, was probably snookered by a siding salesman. And they sided the brick house. I mean, windows were taken out, small windows put in, things bricked up. Originally in 1860, we don't believe these windows were even here. Only windows were on the front and the back. It was what's known as an I house, 2 rooms lined up like that. So this is December of 18. This is when we got our building permit. This was my 3rd site visit to come mark this progress. We're back to one of the first additions, but it's an addition that took the place of a previous addition. There's foundations that are telling us all of this, the framing's telling us all of this, and we were hopeful that we could keep this, but it was only about 6 or 8 inches off the ground. From that cistern location, you could see trails where all kinds of rodents and things had been running around everywhere. All of that's gone. The plan now is to rebuild this addition, an addition sympathetic to what was there, and it will be slab on grade, so it won't have any of those issues. This is May of 19. We were down to the original house, and all of this had to be done very little with equipment. This is mostly guys taking things apart by themselves and trying to be careful and conscientious, and nobody's gotten hurt on the job. Am I correct, Eric?
Yeah, nothing serious.
Okay, not serious. A few scratches and that kind of thing. So we're down to the back. We can really start understanding what's going on with the foundation. This is an image of the stair from the front parlor on the left side looking to the southwest. What you can see here is you can see a line on the wall, on that plaster wall. That's where the first stair was. Its risers were taller than the treads were deep. It did not meet code. The second stair went to a landing and turned and went to the near floor joists that are perpendicular where they're close together there. Then the third stair is what we have here. This is just another shot of it, but this is just peeling away the layers, trying to understand what we're going to put back. This is the condition at the back wall. We think that the stair to the basement on the top right was put in probably in the 20s. It was all done with concrete. This was, the near cellar was a way in there that may have predated that. We think the cellar was hand dug after construction of the house, so it was dug while the house was sitting there. And what we've got is we've got masonry walls that have had all these changes done. None of these masonry walls had these openings done with steel lintels. There's a wood lintel over that opening right there in the middle left of the shot, and you can see how the brick's all cracked up above it where the brick is settling. We ended up losing part of this wall and taking down another part of this wall. Go ahead, Larry. So here we were in the middle of the winter. This is August of last year, August of this year, when we made the decision to take down a portion of the back wall, and Mother Nature helped us do part of it. Not this year, August of 19. Sorry, August of 19. Meantime, the site's been sort of prepped out. We're trying to deal with some of the drainage issues. This is an example, the back footing. The original foundation was stone. There's no spread footing. It's simply just rocks that are laid in the ground, and then the brick was laid on top of that. This is right at that entrance into the cellar. This is an image of the second floor framing. Now, for those that understand construction, you'll follow me, but I'll try to be real brief. 4 joists, 2x6s at 30 inches on center. Then they had other joists added next to them to sister them. Then they had sagged. So then the floor was furred up on the top with another layer of structure to level and another layer furred down to level the ceiling under it. I didn't know what we had to work with. We had to pull this apart to find out what we had, and then we found out we really couldn't work with it. This is the first floor framing. Joists were pocketed into the masonry walls. There's very little crawl space coverage. Some shoring had been done. We ended up replacing this. This is when new foundations were going in after that floor had been taken out. Now we're shoring up everything overhead. This is the cellar under the parlor on the east side. These are getting ready for all the new foundations that were going in. This is the first floor reframed. First floor being reframed. That little piece of wall ended up, we took it down because there was just really no way to hold it up there. What in essence we have now is we have bolted floors, second floor and roof are bolted to the masonry walls. So we're using the diaphragm action of the flooring. I'm working with structural engineer Frank Allison out of Little Rock. Has been helping with all of these foundation designs. That's the wall we were debating, and at this point there was not a major reason to keep it. There was a wall behind it, an interior wall that was 2 stories tall that had 0 footing under it. It was 2 courses of brick sitting on the ground. And so it was unstable. It was not tied into the masonry walls at either end, and so it's down and we've replaced it with a stud wall. This is inside as second floor is being reframed on top of first. So we've started at the ground, framed the first, working on the second. And here's the second that's up, and now the roof is being reframed. This was in October of 19. Another shot from that era. This is just our new attic framing. Now this is second floor framing. Where we're bolting into the walls. We've repaired all of the arches. This is the second floor showing the attic framing. Second floor looking out onto the porch. Now we've got the real frame going on. This is the zip system, the green material that I was talking about that's closing off that back wall now. And then this is what it looked like in January. And in January, we were hit with one of the wettest winters we've had on record. And then COVID started hitting. The Hollises were seeking financing. They were finding financial institutions that weren't moving fast. We had a mason on the job that the company is mostly made up of folks my age. and they're scared to death of COVID. So they've been hard to get back. Eric's looking into other masons now.
That picture's January?
I believe so.
Those evergreen trees on the left?
Yeah, it's a magnolia. I believe that was January 2020. The roof was dried. My notes said, these are photographs. I came up from Little Rock. This was my 6th visit. Roof dried in, back wall reframed, porch reframed. And then the side, we've got the roof framed up. We've got the cornice done. The masonry work is about 90% complete except for the fireplace and chimney. And this is the parlor area. The walls are going to be furred with 2x4s and the interstitial space foam insulated to give a little more insulation to these load-bearing masonry walls. It is more solid now than any time in its 170-year history. This is first floor where we replaced that interior masonry wall with a stud wall. So this will be parlor, and that'll be dining area on the dining room on the far side. The front door's to your right. And this is the second floor porch, which has been reframed. The columns are original. They've got new bases under them. All the deteriorated wood's been replaced. And this is pretty much what it looks like now. There's those new column bases. The leaning pier has been replaced. The next step is getting the turned columns up on the second floor and get the balustrade done, get it trimmed out and painted. Windows are about to be ordered. The exterior will be painted. And I think the next shot is my last shot. So it is a historic building. It's one of the most historic, one of the oldest buildings in Springdale. What's left of it? I mean, it has been reconstituted. And I think that when this is over, I think the Hollises and Hanson Construction will be heroes because it is a major undertaking. It's costing a lot of money. It's been in the Hollis family since 1961. It was hung up in probate for 5 years. That's when it really fell into disrepair. And so the addition that we've planned, that is in design development right now, is based on what was there. It will have very much that, and I think you've seen the images of that Larry provided. That would be the back image looking to the northeast. So at this point, the Hollises said yesterday that they had gotten some financing approval. Everything done to date has been done out of pocket. There is no mortgage on the facility. Their property tax has gone up. It's going up in value. I'm going to turn it back over to Larry, unless you have any questions for me. Okay, thank you.
I don't have anything to add. Again, the contractor's here, Mr. Jameson. My clients are here if there's other questions. I do hope that this at least shows that this has not been sitting without any activity at all for long periods of time. It is slow moving, yes. The nature of it, I think, requires it. So.
Can I ask Mr. Hanson a question?
Absolutely.
Mr. Hanson, yes, you heard Tom say that those 2 permits on the main house expired in August and September.
Yes, sir.
What's been going on since August and September?
So framing has been going on, masonry has been going on. Unfortunately, the way that the code has it, I can't call, or I'm not supposed to, my understanding, for another inspection until rough-in. So that includes all of my framing, which has been completed, but it also includes electrical, plumbing, and HVAC, which clearly we're not ready for. And so I have not called for another inspection because technically I'm not supposed to have them over there until electrical, plumbing, and HVAC is completed. Not to say that all the framing that you guys do see, hasn't gone on. It's clearly we have had a ton of work done. Nothing that I think, allows us to call him to come inspect. If that makes sense. And I'd be happy to make more calls to him. We've discussed that as well, of trying to get him over there. I didn't want to waste his time on coming over there when we don't have the full project ready or another phase of it for him to inspect. Last time he was there inspecting was for the footers.
Was with
footers. I believe we have 16 pier footers that we had poured in there.
From my perspective, I didn't think of it as an inspection call, more like a progress call to come back to this body and explain how it's moved forward.
Yeah.
So I wasn't thinking in terms of inspection.
Right.
As much as forward progress that we have.
Yeah, moving
Hard for us
forward.
to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving forward, we'd be more than happy to do so. I would have loved to had the opportunity to do that as well, or even being asked for it. And so, I apologize to you guys for not giving that request to him. We're getting you guys out there sooner. But now that we know, that we can do that, I want to work with you guys, obviously, to appease you guys.
How much are you on the job?
What's
Have
that?
you been on the job this whole time?
No, we did take a break. About February, I believe, is when we started to slow down. So yeah, you guys are correct in that. We did slow down. I have been waiting on getting the masons and also financing. And so I believe all that's been secured, again, for the next phase of securing what you guys see on that picture right there and the other masonry sides. Yeah.
So what does slow down mean? You left the job?
Not fully, but yeah, little bits have been getting done. So like the Spanish cedar seals on there were done, a little bit of masonry. But yeah, we pumped the brakes on it in about February. Again, waiting for a little bit more direction, which we now have. And yeah, chipping away at it little by little. The work that was supposed to be done in that time period that has slowed down the roof being completed was the masonry fireplace. And my mason, what he's been telling us, and he hasn't been doing any other work on any other projects, is that he is an elderly gentleman. He works with his father and his brother, and that they are very scared of COVID. And they did not want to be getting out. And then also my mason has been watching his grandson because all the child care had stopped. And so they were not able to get on the project. They did start back up. Like I said, we started getting all the seals put back in about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the masons have committed that they're going to be getting that fireplace done throughout the remainder of the next couple weeks if we're allowed to continue working on the project.
Sounded like, if I understood Larry right, talking about the rock building in the back.
Yes, sir.
We were going to, there's a need to empty that out, and I think I heard so you could evaluate the,
Yes,
or so, okay, so the architect could evaluate that building. Would that, with this focus on the getting the existing, the house dried in by October, would that work, that type of work go on before then, or would it have to wait until after?
I don't think.
Because I think there's a big concern too, the buildings in back, are they going to stay? What's going to happen to them? And then you mentioned another building that's further back.
Well, other than the main structure, originally there were 4. There was the stone building and then 3 buildings in the back. 2 of those 4 have been removed already. They're gone. There's one more smaller building in the way back. Tommy may be able to address what the plans for that are. The stone building is the larger one that has the contents, the stuff has to come out, and then there will be some demolition from additions that have gone on to the stone building.
Okay.
And my understanding is to get that stone building back. It was an old candy shop. Tommy can speak better to it. Candy
Yeah, I'd
factory.
heard that, I think.
Yeah, that was the candy factory, and it has a series of additions, one on the east, one on the south, and they are toast, and they will come off. And I believe we can have those off by October and have the stone building stabilized.
In order to dry it in, you're going to have to get your windows. You have to, are those special orders that take a long time, or was the
house-
October timeframe reasonable?
The house will just have composition shingles on it, and
What about the windows, though?
we're
Are
looking at Pella and Eric.
But
says-
they're not, you're not talking about his historic windows that take a year or so to get.
We're looking at a relatively new line that Pella has that is a very
Similar.
good ringer for historic windows. And Eric just indicated he got Pella windows in 5 weeks on a recent order. So we're thinking that's not going to take time. The other thing about the stone building is the original portion of the stone building has a good metal roof on it. So I think it's going to be in much better shape than the two appurtenances, and they're falling apart. And I think that will be about 60% of the footprint that stone building occupies now. About 40% will go away.
Tom, where do we, from your office's perspective, on those outbuildings, those other buildings, what kind of concerns do we have on those?
I expressed to Eric yesterday, because he talked about the building that's out there, which was the best of the three that were in the back, and I believe it's still locked up. It was locked the first time I ever came to it. It was secured. I did let him know, because they talked about rehabbing it, and I said you might want to check with planning, just because I think we discussed 7 feet was on the east side for a property line. I didn't know if that was going to make a difference. I mean, it's existing, so it's probably existing, but I mean, as long as it doesn't add to it. But I pointed that out to him. So that part of the project is really just them redoing the facade and a roof on that, I'm assuming. He didn't discuss how much they planned on doing on that.
Timeframe for that meets this October deadline also, which means putting everything behind it, plus removing everything aside and taking those additions off.
The timeline for October that we've discussed is completing the main masonry portion of the house and getting the additions off of the stone building and getting it to a stable, secure standpoint. Yeah. Further back in the back corner of the property, there is one of the 3 structures that are still there. I went in it 2 years ago. I haven't been back. It was in good, decent condition. There's not really a plan on it at this point. But it's not at risk. It's inside a fenced backyard. It's just an empty. It's not empty. It's got things stored in it.
Have you determined when the stone building and the building further back were most likely constructed?
Not exactly,
Okay.
because I really haven't been in either one of them much. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that the building in back, if I'm not mistaken, was built by Tim's dad. Yeah. So it was the 1960s, probably 1970s.
It's probably the most recent.
It's almost like a dollhouse.
Yeah.
It's like one room.
Oh.
Yeah.
Madam Chairperson, Mike Gilbert would like to address us on this property.
Mike?
Thank you very much. Mike Gilbert, 211 West Maple again. I had an interest in saving this property about 3 or 4 years ago when it was in probate and the taxes weren't being paid and it was deteriorating very swiftly. And I actually submitted a bid to the probate judge on the property. The day that I got the opportunity to go in and inspect the property to submit an offer, I went in with a sketch pad, a tape measure, flashlight, ready to sketch the building footprint, draw up the renovation that I would intend to do because I wanted to convert it to a bed and breakfast, and then develop a budget for it so I could determine what I was going to offer for it. I got inside the building and turned around and went back out to my car, and I put the pad and the tape measure and the flashlight up, and I went and got my hard hat, and then I walked through to develop a demolition budget. And I submitted a bid to the probate court on that property with the intent of demolishing it, because I certainly didn't have the money to do what's being contemplated and what's under progress now. And so I was unsuccessful, and that was fine. I ended up buying the property next door, which is 100 years old, not 130, and ended up having to tear off some poorly done additions, and I've got an extra 100 grand plus in my house that I really don't want to have, but here we are, and that's what happens when you deal with old projects like that. I grew up in New Orleans renovating buildings in the French Quarter. I understand everything we've seen in those pictures. I'm going to tell you that the contractor's doing a fantastic job. I was working in the back of my house the day that back wall fell off of that building. The whole thing fell. I was working, I heard it popping. I got out of the excavator to go see if it was going to fall on my house or not. I determined it wasn't. Got back into the excavator, reached up to turn the key, and bam, the wall came down, the entire wall, except for that little sliver that you saw in the picture. So that was a good representation of what happened there. I was concerned about the property. I was concerned about all of the property. This is the health committee, right? Those cats stink. Lee Elementary School is right behind there. They continue to feed those cats to this day. They also feed the raccoons and all the other wild animals that run around downtown. Why? Why do they all come to 215 Maple? Because that's where the food is. That's the bigger problem today in my mind than the quality of the structure of that building. Because I'm about to move in and I've got a 6-year-old granddaughter and I don't want all those cats running around there. Y'all come sit on my back porch one Saturday afternoon when it's about 95 degrees and you get the stench of those cats and those wild animals and you see how you feel about the health and safety of the environment right on the other side of Lee Elementary School. And so, you know, when we talk about this, when we were here a year and a half ago, and those guys told you what I had observed myself, that that building was unsafe and it really needed to be torn down. Y'all cut their legs out. Y'all trumped them. Y'all made them issue a full building permit. And then you want them to enforce what that building permit's supposed to do over the next year and a half? Guys, you gotta respect the professionals in your department, and they made those recommendations for a reason, and they went on and on and on. And yes, you know, it's a beautiful building, and I'm standing here today and I want to see it saved. I mean, they've got a lot of money in it. I want to see them continue. But if you listened to what was spoken here tonight, you required those guys to issue a permit to rehab that building and to do an addition, right? Is that right? Okay. Then we heard the architect going through the pictures telling us that the addition hasn't been designed. So how do we have a building permit for an addition in Springdale that hasn't been designed? Because the council trumped the building department and told them to issue it. That's part of the problem of why we're here 18 months down the road trying to figure it out. They had Hanson's guys since February. I'm sure he can give you the record if you want. There may be 200 man hours invested in that property in the last 4 months. I'm glad to see that they're coming back. I'm glad to see that they've got the next step to put that building in the dry, because looking at it like that, it's not good. If you get it in the dry and you get a door on it, you get windows on it, you get it all front painted like it's supposed to be, then it looks like a house in downtown Springdale. It's just vacant because it has no air conditioning, no water, no electricity, because it's a shell building. Now, that happens when you do historic renovations. And part of what Mr. Jameson talked about a year and a half ago was that they needed to get it back to the original structure to then begin to pursue the historic help that they were going to pursue. Okay, well, go back through the timeline again. Those structures have been demolished for a year. We don't have an addition design. We don't have a game plan. They're asking you to give them the opportunity to get it in the dry by October. But then what happens then? It's still, I mean, I don't know what the ordinances say specifically, but now we've got a building sitting here that has no water, has no electricity. What is the status on that, and what is the game plan? And believe me, I'm all about this restoration. I want a $700 a square foot house next to mine. It's going to help my property value a lot. And so I'm not here to go against in any way. What I'm here for you to do is ask you to help me. I'm about to move in with my 85-year-old father, 86. He just had a birthday on the 27th. And, you know, I've got a 6-year-old granddaughter that comes to see me all the time. I don't want those animals running around there. I don't want that stink. When they came to you and committed to do the demolition, they tore down the 2 buildings in the back. They should have torn down that canning building. That little cabin that's in the back, it's 400 square feet, and it's in pretty decent shape. You know, I mean, the oak tree that's on my property is hanging over it pretty close. You know, eventually there'll probably be some potential damage to that roof, but, you know, if they want to go cut that limb off of a 100-year tree, they can. But, you know, worst thing y'all could have done was trump the building department when you did. And I sat here and I had some conversation with a number of people around this council and said, this is where we're going to be the day I move in. And guess what? I'm about 2 weeks away. And look at where we are. So please help the Hollises accomplish their goals in whatever way that you can. But don't kick the can and don't give them a way to come out here in October and then say, okay, so we're working on the design. The first iteration was a little bit over budget. And you're right. Rabbit's Foot was a perfect example. You guys aren't doing any better than they are. You know, and old historic buildings like that take a boatload of money. And that's why when I walked into it and saw what was going to happen, I said, yeah, I'm going to demo it and look to redevelop a little pocket neighborhood by the school. And that was what my game plan shifted to. But you guys got to spend a lot of money on Rabbit Foot Lodge. These guys got to spend a lot of money here. And so I ask if you continue to go forward with this, that you require, strip those permits. Why is there an addition permit when there's no plan? How did that happen? Strip it back down to what we're doing. Make them demo the stuff that's still, a year and a half later, not acceptable and unsafe. And get us to, they've got a fence around the property, so to the public it is safe. But, you know, get it done. And the other thing is, there's a mental health issue right here in downtown that everybody's sticking their head in the sand. We all know who's feeding those cats. We all know who's squatting in that house next door. We let him live in that one with no running water and electricity for years until his brother bought it and kicked him out. And so do something about that. Help Philip get some treatment. Help him get a place to put a roof over his head and some food and get something that keeps him from feeding those animals. Thanks.
I didn't know Mr. Gilbert.
Go ahead and get up there to the microphone.
I didn't know Mr. Gilbert. I guess I just met you today. I've seen you. I saw you at the courthouse when you bid on the house. And he's saying about the money. If we want to spend this money on this house, what business is it of yours? This is why we don't have historical buildings in Springdale. Think about it. These buildings are torn down and replaced with square buildings. They're not architectural like this one. They're not historical. You look downtown, what do you have? A lot of our historical buildings are gone in this town. Just because of this, we don't want to take the time and the money to spend and build them and fix them up. Now we're fixing up this house. I grew up in this house. I grew up in this house. This house built me. It means something to me. It should mean something to Springdale. Mr. Gilbert is not from Springdale. So he doesn't give one iota about the historical value of this town. I read when John Tyson, I know John Tyson, when he built this, redid the building downtown. And he was quoted in the paper as saying something about the meaning of these historical buildings, the memories that people have that lived in them. This is our town. This is part of our town. A lot of work has gone into this building. You can't see it from the street. Miss Jaycox came out today and saw some of it. Eric and Tommy have shown you pictures of what they had to do demolition-wise. You learned it with the Rabbit Foot Lodge. You just can't go down to Walmart and buy that, can you, Mayor? No, you can't. It takes some time to do this. It takes some time to fix up a historical building. Mr. Gilbert has a house next door. I'm not sure if it's 100 and something years old, but this house is probably the oldest house left in this town. The oldest house left in Springdale. Just because Mr. Gilbert didn't want to go, he wanted to demolish it, that doesn't mean I'd want it to. We're building this, we are doing what we said we were going to do. It takes time. Mr. Gilbert came up and said, he's not speaking against us. It sounded to me like he's speaking against us, folks. Sounded to me like he wants the building torn down. He doesn't want to wait. His property values are going down. What's the property value going to be, Mr. Gilbert, when it's a level lot?
I didn't say I wanted it torn down. You misunderstood.
If it's a level lot, it's not going to be worth anything. Maybe that's where we're going to build that hotel somebody wanted.
I think this council, right or wrong, demonstrated how much they value that building a few years ago when they kept it from getting torn down. Now, I'm gonna tell you something, and I mean this with the utmost respect, because you've put a lot of money into that building.
Yes, we have.
And nobody wants to see it wasted. But I'm gonna tell you, if this council decides to save this building, it's gonna be in spite of what you just said, not because of what you just said.
Well, I don't know what that means.
Well, think about it. Go back and look at the tape.
Well, we put the money into it. You questioned whether or not we did. We put the money into it, sir.
I'm not questioning.
We put the money into it. Well, you said you met with Larry and you wasn't sure if that we put the money into it. I was listening to you. We put it in. It's in there. And we're going to put some more money into it. We're going to get this fixed. Now, my brother doesn't live in that house next door. I don't know where he lives, but he's not living in that house. Yes, he's the one that feeds those cats. I didn't give him permission. I don't want the cats. I never did want them. I don't know. They're feral cats. He started taking care of them because he felt sorry for them, I guess. No, it's wrong. I agree. Those cats got to go. And we're going to do something about them. It started yesterday. The police were called out there. I don't know if you knew that. They called out the police on Phillip. Ask your police department for the report. Anyway, we're going to take care of it. You'll stay with us and let us do this. I mean, it seems like you would understand. You have the same problem like you said with the Rabbit Foot Lodge. It's not easy. It takes some time.
Well, I haven't been here since the beginning of all of this. But from my perspective, I think in the beginning it was, wow, there was a 4-year thing going, where all of the, things weren't being met in these 4 years. And then it was, well, actually the couple, they didn't get a hold of the house until 2 years ago. And within those 2 years, we've had 6 months of COVID, or the winter, whatever it is. I want to see the house protected. I'm a property rights girl, and I believe that they should have that opportunity. I see the progress. I see what he's, has done over the process of these couple of years. I don't think it's saying that they've done nothing. And I also think that the cats is a completely separate issue. I think you have two completely different issues here. And there's a way to figure out how to get rid of the cats. I had 17 cats in my next door neighbor's house, and they were feeding them. And it was an issue of catching the cats and giving them to farmers. I don't know what they call that. Rehoming them to these farmers because they were feral, but yet they were domesticated because some people were feeding them. They were friendly, so they weren't crazy wild. But anyway, 17 cats gone. I know the smell. I know the nastiness. I know how they tear up you and your neighbors' items outside, and how gross it is when their feces is in your garden all the time and they're digging stuff up. And so that's one issue, okay? But the other issue is that this gentleman has a right to his property, and he is making progress. It may not be the progress that we all want it to be in the timeline that we want it to be in. But, and I haven't been here from the beginning. I admit that. But from where I'm sitting, I think it's a shame if we don't give this a chance. And it being one of, and I'm a history buff. I think it's important. I don't think we need to get rid of histories, not statues, not old buildings. I believe that history is important. And I'm tired.
That's why it's still standing right down.
Yeah. So I think we ought to, I don't know where the happy medium is here. I don't know if it's where are we going to be in 30 days or what it should be from now until October, or, I don't know those angles. But I think we're all smart people and we can, come to some sort of compromise. Hopefully soon.
So I need to direct this question at Mr. Evers first, I think. Are the permits currently expired? So for them to carry the work to the next stage, they need to have a permit issued from the building department, I would assume. And so I would hope that this time, when there's application made for a building permit, that there is a building permit that's issued for the work that is contemplated, and that we don't put ourselves in a situation where we have a permitted activity going on with no plan review and no life safety review of that structure that is contemplated being constructed. So right now, you've got a building sitting there with no permit, and a permit needs to be issued before they return to work on that site. And so I hope that you give the building department the authority that they deserve to handle that in the proper manner. Thanks.
Any other comments?
Action tonight, we're down to the point where we extend this until that October deadline, but the building permit has to be reissued. There have to be clear markers as we move forward. Is that where we are?
I'd like to make a motion that we table this to the second meeting in August. That way it comes back to us. It's not left up to Tom. They have to come back to us to show us what's happened in the next 30 days, approximately 30 days. I don't want to wait till October. I want to know something's going on now.
The point is they don't have any permits whatsoever. So
What?
They don't have any permits at all right now. Every permit's expired.
I understand, but with Mike's suggestion, we would basically be giving them 30 days, and then we're kind of leaving it up to Tom to decide whether progress is going on. I think we need to reconsider the ordinance in 30 days, and if nothing's happening, I don't want to wait till October.
So that gives Tom permission for them to reapply.
Yeah, why couldn't they? I don't know why they couldn't do that.
Gives them an opportunity to pull a permit, do some work, come back to us and say, here's what we got
Tom,
going.
do they reapply or do they just ask for an extension?
They got to pull a permit, too. They don't have one.
They would pay for a permit again. And
But
again,
they'd have to do that either way.
if we're putting on that 90-day deal, I could cut it down to the 90 days. And I definitely agree with Mr. Gilbert. I mean, the addition, of course, when this all started, you don't know when it's going to start. I mean, I wouldn't reissue the addition permit now because we're not ready for that. They're not doing anything with that. And that would at least be a 90-day deal. But
Jeff, I'm okay with what you're suggesting. And Tom, you have to do what you have to do as far as the permit goes, the application and everything. I would say, though, I would like to make sure that they do something about these feral cats now and quickly.
So is that a second?
Do what?
Is that a second?
Yep.
Be August 25th. It'll be the meeting date.
Can I add one thing? I don't want to complicate this. Certainly, we welcome any reprieve that you're willing to give, My understanding of the way the permits work, though, is that the reason it expired is because there was nothing, there wasn't electrical, there wasn't plumbing, there wasn't heating and air. And if this is just to give 30 days so those can be inspected, that's not going to happen.
That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is they get pull a building permit to get started, and then in 30 days we'll be able to see if they're actually on track
there a permit
to be able
you
to
can
dry
give
it
them?
in October.
Okay.
Is there a permit?
Because
you can give
all
them
they're
now?
doing is pulling the building permit. It's not saying for anything else, and then the ball's in their court to go ahead and fulfill the terms of the building permit period. That's it.
Right? Is that right, Tom, that you can give them a permit now to continue the work?
I could. I mean, I don't have to charge them again. I could give them a 30-day extension right now to comply with what you're trying to facilitate, to see where they stand in 30 days, which would give them the blessing to go on for the next 30 days.
I don't think he's talking about just giving them the 30-day permit. I think what he's talking about, if you give them a permit and in 30 days, when it comes back to the committee, if the committee is not convinced that concrete work has been done as far as progress toward drying it in, getting their windows and doors ordered, etc., then the ball game's over.
Yes, sir.
Because we've done this before, and that's an even better suggestion than what I had about going ahead.
And if we need to, we can table it again.
Then it's up to us to take a look at it, but we have to be convinced at that point, and it's our call.
Yes, sir.
At that point in time, not yours. And you give them a permit now, but then we can tell you you're gonna terminate that permit today because we're gonna go ahead and vote to raise this structure. Period. But if they go ahead and move along, which I'm sure they're probably going to do, then they'll be moving along, and if in fact they can get it dried in, where the doors and windows and the roof on it and painted by October, then they're making progress.
Yes, sir.
And if it takes them some time to get the heat and air and electrical, we can understand that.
Well, the heat and air and
That comes later.
yeah, you're not asking them to change they've got a timeline for October right now, or a goal for October now.
The goal
Just
for
drive
October is
it
just to
in.
get it dried in.
And that's not going to change.
No, but
You're just wanting to see the progress in between.
We want to be convinced there is progress, yes, and that there's a permit, because right now there's nothing.
To your point, Jeff, and to Mike's point, if there's finally, the windows are ordered, the doors are ordered, the masons are working, I mean, at least it shows that it's moving forward.
Cleaning up the debris around, cutting the trees and that sort of stuff.
Sure. Taking care of the feral cat issue.
And that should satisfy everyone.
And I hope that the Hollises understand that, I asked this body over 9 years now to make a lot of difficult decisions, and they really bend over backwards to help the community. I mean, that's my boss right there. I mean, he's the guy, and it's like well, I just want you to understand. I mean, I do put a lot on this body. It's their ordinance, and I'm paid to enforce this ordinance, and I won't bring it to them unless I think it's a serious enough offense, like it's just life safety or whatever. So, I mean, the body's not handcuffed me as much as they're trying to work with the citizens, because they all work for the citizens as well. But I mean, that's what I tried to explain to Mr. Jameson. That's what I tried to explain to Eric Hansen. We need some drop dead dates so that when people are calling and complaining, or when council persons are asking me where are we at or what we're doing, we've got to see it. And I'm willing to work with you any way you want. I mean, yes, we normally do an all rough in, and it's all different things. Obviously, when you get to the wiring, I don't want you to wire the front house and then wire the addition. I would assume you would want to wire it all together. So I can deviate from that to some extent, but we can't have 6 months, 5 months gaps. And like I told Mr. Jameson on the phone, it really doesn't matter what's happening, because everybody's doing our part to work through this COVID. I mean, I haven't missed a beat. I mean, the mayor has not missed a beat. I've had people ask us, why are you there? Hey, till the mayor goes home, I'm working. you know, I mean, if he's here, I'm here, you know, so.
Chairman, I second Mr. Watson's.
Oh, okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments?
Are we clear on what
One-
this motion is?
One thing I'd like to say real quick, if it's okay. I would not want the Hollises to pay any more than what they have to, so if it's okay, I'd like to let Tom go ahead and reissue this permit without cost.
For the 30 days or for the, okay, absolutely, I have no problem with that. That's, I would ask the mayor that before I left anyway.
The motion, who made the motion?
Jeff.
Jeff, what was your motion again?
Just to table until the second meeting in August.
Second meeting.
Council meeting or committee meeting?
Second council meeting in August.
August
So we'll
25th.
go back to the meeting. Okay.
Okay, August 25th.
Hi, any other questions?
All right. We have a motion and a second. No further comments, questions? Denise?
Watson. Evans. Powell. Jaycox.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Thank you. Jeff, do you want to get Colby to quickly give us a financial update?
Yes, please.
He's on his way. Hey. Thank you.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
These numbers may be out of date, but I'll go over them anyway. I apologize we weren't able to do a financial update at the last committee meeting. We didn't have our information yet on our sales tax revenue for the month of May. As you know, there's a 2-month delay in reporting. The numbers came in the next day, I believe it was, and our 1 cent sales tax for the month of May came in at $1.395 million. That was the 7th highest month we've ever had in our city. And let me also add this in there. Every month we have rebates that deduct from what we receive in our sales tax revenue. This was one of the highest months we've ever had in recent memory of rebates. Usually we average a little over $100,000, and we had $300,000 that got taken out. If it hadn't have been for that, this would have been the record month that we've ever had in the city. So even though we only had a 0.5% increase, the total dollar amount was very significant. In May, the Arkansas Economic Development Institute projected that we would be down 9.2%. They readjusted that in July and said minus 8.5, and we ended up with being ahead 0.5%. So well done to the residents of Springdale for shopping in Springdale and spending the money here. You have in your Dropbox the revenue expenditure summary. I'm just going to quickly give you the numbers on this. Our cumulative budget was, to this point, $20,754,000. We've brought in over $21 million. It's $21,793,000. We've basically brought in over $1 million than what we had anticipated at this point this year. As far as expenditures, we are down $1.279 million. So when you combine those two things together, we're to the good $2.318 million this year. And that is significant, and well done once again, Springdale. You all know that in the budget that we voted on for this year, we were asking the CIP for $3 million. Instead of agreeing to that, we agreed to the $2 million that we normally transfer, and that we would revisit the extra $1 million. We're actually on pace to where we might wipe that out, actually, the $3 million transfer that we've requested. We're walking into the months of the year where we're going to see a pretty good increase. I believe our biggest months are ahead, August through December. And so there's a real opportunity for us to hit $17 million. We've never hit $16 million. So we're tracking pretty good, and that's my update for y'all. If y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer what I can.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Colby. I'm thinking about Rabbit Foot Lodge right now.
So we all could see that happening.
We were tonight, we were the proverbial black kettle getting called out by the pot. So anyway, this was a long meeting, and I'll allow any comments from the council before we adjourn, but if...
One mayor,
Okay.
I think all of us are saddened by the news of the loss of your father,
Thank you.
and you have this entire council and city's prayers for you and your family.
Thank you. And our family appreciates that very much, and really thankful to all of y'all and everyone who's reached out to us. I've been praying for Dad. It's been a short struggle since we found he was sick, and we're very blessed that he was completely ready in every way, and suffered very little and for a very short amount of time. And thanks to the great facilities that he got to stay in those short periods of time where he was kept very comfortable, and we're very thankful for that as well. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody. Any other comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, Jeff's got one. Go ahead, man.
So I know we're going to revisit Rabbit's Foot Lodge and kind of look at the numbers on that. I'd like a little bit of an explanation as to what our contractual obligations are.
I think Ernest will be ready for that. That's good.
It sounded to me like maybe we deserve a threat, but it sounded like we were threatened.
Well, yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
I'm not telling you good job.